It's the test of truth, the individual time trial, 27.2 kilometres alone against the clock. It's the only individual time trial of the race. It starts and finishes in Pogues. It is hilly and it's technical. Matthew Keenan with you alongside me, a 12-time stageman at the Tour de France, Robbie McEwen. Today, Robbie, is a day where the sprinters, they will take a back seat.
All those questions answered in what we know as the race of truth. There is absolutely nowhere to hide. In the time trial, the best automatically float to the top.
That was back in 1553 that he was born there, and they have a relic from there that has actually been moved to put on display in Paris, and it's a turtle shell that served as a crib for the future King Henry IV.
And then empty the tank in the last couple of kilometres maximum. Alaphilippe just has to try and follow.
On the topic of the final few kilometres, the last 7Ks, the average speed today, Geraint Thomas, 50.24. Julian Alaphilippe, 51.25 for the last 7Ks. The music has started. Alaphilippe is on his way to the podium again. 1:26 buffer in the race for yellow ahead of Thomas. It's then Kruijswijk at 2:12. Mas, his teammate, at 2:44. Bernal has slipped to 2:52. It's then Bookman at 3:04. Pinot back in contention. Uran was good today. And today the mountains are only just getting started. It's the Col de Tourmalet. It has been scaled more than any other climb in the history of the Tour. The first time up here was 1910. Today, it will be the Frenchman, Julian Alaphilippe, trying. Stage 14, it's short, but it's tough. Incredibly tough. It starts in Tarbes, it finishes at the top of the Col de Tourmalet. It all kicks off with a small Category 4 climb, a launching pad for the breakaway. It's then onto the Col de Soleure, and it's then down into the valley briefly before scaling the Tourmalet for the Souvenir Jacques Godet. Matthew Keenan with you for stage 14 of the Tour de France, joined by Robbie McEwen. Robbie, it is a big day ahead for the climbers and the race for yellow.
This is where they consider their tour to really get underway. 31 kilometres of true Pyrenean cols to be climbed on this stage today. The last one, 19 kilometres at 7.5%. This will really start to sort things out for the classification.
Before we talk about the race, we need to talk about that statue. That is the statue for Ferdinand Jean-Marie Foch, who was the 6th of 7 children. He was born in Tarbes, but he had played a huge role throughout the First World War. He was also a key part in the signing of the Treaty of Versailles, which the Germans weren't initially prepared to sign. He then threatened to go on the offensive once again, so that was then signed, and he was a visionary in terms of his thoughts on what that outcome would be, and he said that the Treaty of Versailles was not a signing of peace, but simply a 20-year armistice. Sadly, the future would prove him to be correct. So a significant figure from Tarbes, and we pay our respects to Marshal Foch. This is the leader of the King of the Mountains classification, as we have Tim Wellens from Soudal Lotto, and his roommate and his good teammate, Thomas de Gendt, was one of the big surprise packets yesterday. No, he didn't win, but for a while it looked like he could have. So this is Callebajan on the front. Second position is the Estonian Rein Taaramäe.
"44 seconds the gap for Sagan and Nibali."
Almost at the base of the first official climb of the day. Another reaction now, though, coming from the peloton. It's not in control mode just as yet. Dodging the hay bales. Fingers crossed everybody gets through there safely.
And there's always one more who goes. Team UAE and
Sergio Henao, perhaps.
I think it looks like the body shape of the small Colombian. Luis Leon Sanchez tracks him as well. Up and over for Julian Alaphilippe.
He knows how to have fun. Taaramäe, now Callebajan. They've got 3 in this move, Total Direct Energy.
And it looks now like finally the peloton has been able to block off the front of the bunch all the way across the road. It's a big group forming now.
Zakarin in red. This is Roman Sikar, the third of the riders from that team. And And perhaps that's Guillaume Martin. We'll have to take a closer look at the rider from Monty Group Goubert. Marco Haller is there for Katusha Alpecin, the rider who's in second position, and he will drive this full noise to the base of the Col de Solaire, the first of the Category 1 climbs. And Matej Mohoric from Bahrain Merida also responding.
They're now on to that Category 4 climb, the Côte de l'Abatmal. 1.4 kilometres. He'll get whatever he can. But there's a very group forming behind them.
Vincenzo is chasing a stage victory. Conversation at this point, and Vincenzo and Peter Sagan. Sagan with a smile and a laugh. I think they're waiting to be caught by a smart bike rider.
Yeah, they will be hearing now. Tim Wellens already going for the cooling very early on in the stage. It's quite warm up here. Even at this altitude on the Tourmalet, it's a very warm day out.
It's into the 30s in the valley already. Sanchez there for Astana.
And it is Henao who's joined the group for UAE.
The rider from Arkea Samsung is Alia Gisbert that's managed to get across. He was the rider last year that Gianni Moscon took a swing at. And Moscon, the Italian from Ineos, was ejected appropriately from the race.
Nibali and Sagan, well, they have just wound it back a fraction now. Sagan, he says, well, I'll just wait for the big part of the group to catch me. No need to make too much effort. Yeah, he's very solid for a bike rider. Put him in a rugby match, he'll look decidedly skinny.
It's like watching the NBA, and you think that guy looks pretty small. Then the numbers come up. He's 200 centimetres tall and he weighs 100 kilos.
Nibali still pushing on at the moment, but really knowing the group is coming across, he's not giving it everything. Just tempo towards the top of the climb and recover from the initial effort of getting away and then slot into the group. Then it will be a case of fingers crossed that the peloton give us a big gap, because they've only got 50 kilometres to build it up, and that was when they were scheduled to start at the original kilometre zero. Of course, this stage delayed by some 6.5 kilometres to ensure the rider's safety. So just 43.5 kilometres left to the foot of the Soleure from the start. It's not a lot of time to build up a big buffer.
No, it's not.
But this is good news for them.
Very good news. And another bit of good news for Vincenzo Nibali is in that group that's about to come across to him, his teammate, Matej Mohoric. Mohoric will sacrifice for Vincenzo Nibali. He will drive for as long as he can.
Vincenzo Nibali on his way to getting 1 point. Any sign of Tim Wellens? Probably not. 1 point, not a big difference. Wellens certainly will want to be in the hunt when they get to the summit of the Col de Soleure.
He's flushing out the lactic acid from that initial effort to force the breakaway. Peter Sagan will hold on for second over the top of the climb. And that's worked out well for Peter Sagan to get a head start at the base of that climb before the rest of the group comes across.
You see how slowly they've ridden up that climb, and the group still hasn't got to them. They had a really big lead before they got there. They're out to 2 minutes 23 ahead of the peloton, and just now a rider from Trek Segafredo going away.
Fabio Fellini it was. This is Ladanu, followed by Marco Haller. Then it's Ilnaz Zakarin, who is a really good climber.
Quite a different level of intensity now across the top of the climb for this group. They'll pick up Sagan. Good move, but it's going to restrict the gap that this breakaway will be allowed to have. Without him there, who was the next best? 25 minutes.
Sergio Henao at 25.24. How much would he like to have said that I've got a radio problem when he heard that come through from the team car? We need somebody to go across. Fabio, guess what? Today, it's your job to do the dishes. Go and clean up.
Sorry, can't hear you, going into a tunnel.
Exactly what he would have been thinking and wanted to do.
Now there is Verona just going through and off at the front.
What do you make of Sanchez being in this group? In the context of also having Jakob Fuglsang daring to dream about making the podium by Paris, who's back in the peloton, mind you.
A very good and very experienced domestique, super domestique up the road, who's also not without a chance of winning this stage, although I think he'd have to go in an attacking move out of this group, leaving behind the very best climbers well before we get to the Tourmalet.
That's Ladanu at the back in the white, predominantly white, and the blue and red colours of Groupama FDJ. On Colombian Independence Day, slightly disappointing day for them yesterday. Dan Martin conceding a chunk of time, down to 11th overall at 4:15. But as we sit in the commentary box, Robbie is pointing vigorously at the time. The gap, it's back under
30 seconds. They're riding well together. This is the peloton. FDJ for Thibaut Pinot getting involved, and this is because of the presence of Guillaume Martin. No other reason at this stage, this early, to chase this break for FDJ.
I don't get it. They still don't need to chase it, even at that point, because Thibaut Pinot is 7th overall. He's at 3:22 behind. He's 6 minutes ahead of Guillaume Martin. But Thibaut Pinot is the last of the riders from Groupama FDJ, sitting just in front of Luke Rowe. He doesn't need to be, and he shouldn't be racing based on Guillaume Martin being in that breakaway. He needs to be racing based on the yellow jersey in this group and Geraint Thomas in this group. That's where his race should be focused.
Unless their confidence is just so enormously high for Thibaut Pinot to ride everybody out of the wheel on the slopes of the Col du Tourmalet and win the stage. I don't think that's the case this early in the race.
Well, this is William Bonnet who is at the front, the bigger figure from the Groupama FDJ team. And for a guy like William Bonnet, who's a noted sprinter, well, he was a few years ago, early in his career, it'd be a horrible thought having to do all the pacemaking before you hit the big mountains. This is Zakarin from Katusha Alpecin. Now, that's a team that needs a stage win.
And it's a man who has the skill set to do it, but we've seen in this tour he seems to be completely exhausted from his efforts in the Giro d'Italia, where he finished 10th overall. This is l'Église de l'Assomption de Notre-Dame in Benejac.
One of the many Assumption de Notre-Dames that we'll be able to get a look at throughout today's stage. And this one's just a few hundred years old.
This is the back of the peloton. The rider there, number 212, is Maxime Bouet. Here at the front, William Bonnet.
And Max Richesi then in second position. To Koenig Quickstep, the team of Julian Alaphilippe, they have so much experience riding at the front throughout the first week. Halfway through the second, it's a new experience for them, defending the yellow jersey or the leader's jersey in any Grand Tour this deep into the race. Even though we're only just starting the phase in the high mountains, the Pyrenees, and then next week at the back end of the tour. The front of the peloton, Groupama FDJ chasing. In the breakaway, we just saw Mathieu Ladanu working with this group. Surely radio communication will be saying, Mathieu, sit on the back.
You would think so in this situation. What could be a good thing for Thibaut Pinot is that this group gets over the first big climb of the day, the Col de Soulur, in front of the peloton, and Ladanu is then there to assist in any way he can. But it is a very curious tactic, and you are shaking your head vigorously.
I am. It's because I don't agree with him. I agree with you.
Because we always get on.
Well, from this group, if this group was to survive, then let's have the conversation. Who wins from that group if they were to survive to the top of the Tourmalet? And we have to pick a different rider. You go first.
Martin. Guillaume Martin. You were going to pick him, so now you're thinking of someone else.
Nibali. Experience. I'll go with experience.
Sentimental pick.
Guillaume Martin's. No? Yeah, I think Guillaume Martin's got better form. I think he's got the legs. So experience would win from that group. Vincenzo Nibali.
Fair enough.
You know what? I don't think we're going to get the answer today, because I don't think they're going to make it.
No, I don't think they're going to either. Not with the chase going on like this behind. They had 2.5 minutes, came just under 2, and now kilometres of racing, because we did have that late start. And talking of sprint trains, they've been one of the best in the first week. Got it absolutely correct once, but they've always managed to have Elia Viviani in contention for the sprint wins. But now the tactic of the team has completely turned around. Alaphilippe was sort of doing his own thing early on. He was Lulu. They didn't have to do much. Now having the yellow jersey, a lot more responsibility. And they won't be thinking about further sprints at the moment. There may be one in Nîmes in a few days. And after that, there'll be one in Paris. I think we won't have many sprinters there.
No, I don't think we will.
For the sprinters, once they get to the 50-kilometre mark, to the foot of the Soleure, it's a time trial.
And Vincenzo Nibali will like this, with Maciej Mohoric trying to set the tempo for this breakaway group in the red colours of Bahrain Merida.
Still a small gap. Still a small gap. 2:47, so it's out towards 3, and it's just shrinking again at the moment.
This is Calmejean.
It's not going to be enough.
Calmejean through to the front, then his teammate to come through, that's Roman Siccar. With the yellow shoes, that's Alexis Villimos. Vincenzo work, he's not just relying on his teammate to do all the pacemaking. And for Groupama FDJ, Mathieu Ladanu about to roll through to the front. Surely he's playing a slightly disruptive role with his teammates doing all the pacemaking back in the main peloton. Does look like he's eased up ever so slightly as he rolls over the top of Vincenzo Nibali as we see the return of Rein Taaramäe.
Just talking about that time gap and who's chasing behind, back to 2:46. They are now at 68.5 kilometres to go in Ferrier. No disrespect, but that is guys like Marco Haller. He's a sprinter, got himself into the group, well done. But his teammate, for example, the man on the right at the front, Zakarin, he will know with this time gap, we've got to get on with it, up the tempo.
And that's exactly why Marco Haller was in the group. So along that valley road, he could do the pacemaking. And Zakarin is riding smartly, one of the better climbers from this group. 10th this year at the Giro d'Italia. He's trying Movistar. Good move for Movistar today as they also focus on the team's classification. Alexis Villimos just in front of him from AG2R Le Mondial. One of the strange moves yesterday in the time trial was from Villimos' teammate Romain Bardet with the bike change at the top of the climb at the 15-kilometre mark.
I thought that was a really poor decision. Not an aero bike, and it didn't have that tipped forward aerodynamic look of a time trial bike. It looked to be more like a road bike. It had been set up with time trial bars on it, and then that changed to the real aerodynamic bike. But by that stage, he'd already lost a whole lot of time by the time he got to that intermediate time check. Well, it was a bad decision. It just cost him more time.
It shows how rattled he is.
Yeah. That was grabbing at straws.
Yeah. Romain Bardet is down into 17th at 5 minutes and 46 behind. And this is a guy who 2 years ago was 3rd overall. 3 years ago, he was in 2nd place overall. He said that he's just hoping by the end of this year's Tour de France form or that spirit of racing of a couple of seasons ago. As a sprinter, Robbie, what are the thoughts going through your head?
It just so happens, when I was having a look on Instagram this morning, Caleb Ewan's Instagram story. Fact of the day, I'll have to go harder than the person who will win the stage just to stay inside the time cut. Crying face emoji.
What are the emotions then of a retired sprinter who's won the green jersey as he looks at those images?
All I could say, I actually sent him a little message.
He was the French president, Emmanuel Macron, on the far side of the car. Christian Prudhomme nearest the picture. He is the tour director. He was the former lead commentator for French television, covering the Tour de France for a number of years.
Yep, Christian Prudhomme, the former journalist, and now the director of the world's biggest race.
He's been in charge since 2006. I was a little worried initially with so many stages of 200 plus kilometres that could lead to some really negative racing, but it hasn't been the case at all. The only genuinely dull day was the stage that was won by Dylan Groenewegen sur Saône, which was 230 kilometres, and there was no real wind to cause any action within the peloton, and you can't have chocolates every day. And Mohoric is doing the sacrificing for Vincenzo Nibali. Guillaume Martin, the philosopher, is at the back. He did philosophy at university in Paris. peloton's still pretty much all together. Group Armour FDJ doing a lot of the pacemaking. And it's the time trial specialist now who was on the front. William Bonnet has gone from the front. It's now over to Stefan King, who is setting the pace. So far, things are working out well, but it's still very early in the stage, less than halfway through. Luke Rowe, the first of the riders from Ineos. The rider that just wiped his nose then, that's David Gaudu. 22-year-old Frenchman, brilliant climber. He'll be crucial to the prospects today of Thibaut Pinot. Average speed so far 42.5. It will be a lot slower than that by the end of the stage at the top of the Col de Tourmalet. The two have finished at the top of the Col de Tourmalet for the very first time in 1974. It was Jean-Pierre Denguem who went out the winner of the stage on that occasion. So let's now take a look at the historic footage from 1974 and the first ever finish at the top of the Col de Tourmalet.
This is Matteo Trentin. Also feeling the effects. I wouldn't expect him to be dropped just yet from the big group, but maybe also feeling the effects of that breakaway the other day on the way to Bagnères de Bigorre.
It went super deep, but they got the result as Simon Yates won.
Roger Kluge.
166 is Roger Kluge. The upside down 13, Marcus Burkhardt.
You'll see a lot of riders here doing the maximum to try and hang on over the top of the Salur to get a free ride down the valley. It's a bit of descending, then a plateau, then gently downhill down the valley, and then quite a bit of flat before they hit the foot of the Tourmalet. And being such a short stage, the time cut will be short as well. If you can possibly hang on, you're much better to get over the Salur, and then you're safe. Haven't seen many of the sprinters.
Well, one of them's in the breakaway wearing the green jersey and setting the tempo at the front. Peter Sagan again. There he is, Sagan in third position. His former teammate Vincenzo Nibali now setting the pace. Since Ilnaz Zakarin got this group moving once again, they're back out to 2:30 in the right direction. Hoping to get to the top of this climb and collect maximum points. 10 points on offer at the top of this climb. And it's 20 points for the top of the Col de Tourmalet. This is Roger Kluge from Soudal Lotto. Instrument Le Buin. That was into Toulouse a couple of days ago.
Little flatter section. Just saying excuse me to his German colleague, Niels Pollitt.
And at the back, Steve Cummings still in contact. This is the leading group. Zakarin with the red helmet, now in the blue colours for Astana. Tim Wellens is now coming through, racing for that King of the Mountains classification. He leads ahead of his teammate Thomas de Gens, and Tim Wellens is one of the riders we caught up with before the stage started. Let's now have a listen to the man who wears the polka dots as the leader of the King of the Mountains classification, Tim Wellens. That was Marc Soler setting the tempo, and Andre Greipel is one of the first to pay the price.
So Movistar also getting interested in the chase. So it seems a lot of teams got their hearts set now. It can't be panic about Guillaume Martin, who's at over 9 minutes behind on GC. This is racing to try and put Julien Alaphilippe under pressure. Don't give him an easy ride over the first climb. Keep the pressure on. Make it come down to the pure climbers. They've got to get rid of him.
It's closing down really quickly, but everybody predicting the big decisions will be in the Alps. This is now Andre Amador at the front, followed by Marc Soler.
Maybe they want to test him, but Thomas has got a teammate up there setting tempo as well in Michal Kwiatkowski, and that's also very early. Here's Julien Alaphilippe in his wheel, Steven Kruijswijk. I think a lot of this is aimed at unseating Julien Alaphilippe.
Sunweb, they've been in plenty of breakaways throughout the race. They've had a few close calls, but now they're relying on the young 22-year-old German climber.
Ilnur Zakarin, who kicked off the hostilities within this group. He upped the tempo. Vincenzo Nibali, he's the man who started the break. He was the first real attack. Vincenzo Nibali, see who's still coming across, and always willing to push the tempo is Zakarin. He looked bad in the first week of this Tour de France. Maybe he started to come through and he's found some sort of Grand Tour second wind.
This is Roman Sicker, who is fighting his way back, looking for the wheel of Luis Leon Sanchez, who is the man next in line. This is Sanchez from Astana. Total Direct Energy is about to be caught. They have Carlos Verona in that breakaway group, who hasn't been contributing. He's been sitting.
Still two riders. Geraint Thomas, Richie Porte making his way further up towards the front. It will not be a big group as they come over the top of the Sulur. There's a big split.
Yes. Ned Berhane, the Eritrean national champion, had an opportunity yesterday to have a good...
Riders you wouldn't expect to be in contention on this stage. Simon Clark, number 93 in the pink and purple of Daryl Impey. Luke Durbridge, 102. Number 92, Alberto Bettiol, the winner of the Tour of Flanders.
This group just getting itself organised. This is Michael Matthews now in the red colours, that familiar figure. Colours from De Koenig Quick-Step. Next one going backwards, that's Anthony Roux, former French national champion.
Rosetto, Perez, always together.
Romain Bardet is in this group, so no, that's Michael Charel. I thought it was Bardet for a moment. That was Michael still in that.
Also overboard, Oliveira for Movistar, Magnus Cort. Plenty of drop riders to look at.
It is Gianni Moscon, number 5 from Ineos. There he is, Roman. 2019 has been a write-off. This is a man who's finished second overall in the Tour de France. 30-plus riders surrounding the yellow jersey, and Bardet is not amongst them.
I'll be surprised if Romain Bardet finishes this Tour de France. It's been a complete disaster. I don't know what the exact reason is, just lack of form. Is there an illness or injury that's been kept quiet and he's being found out? But this is not where he should be in this current sort of form.
Is that Simon Yates? It is Simon Yates, the winner of the stage in the Bagnères de Bigorre.
You know, it wouldn't surprise me about Simon Yates, though, that he was so far back in the peloton that 80 riders have been dropped in front of him, and that is that gap, and he'll ride his way back across it.
Kwiatkowski now being dropped for Ineos, so they're starting to be strung out. Still 3 riders in that group from Jumbo. George Bennett, the Kiwi climber, and also their number 1 man, Steven Kruijswijk. And Kruijswijk is well placed overall in 3rd position. Oh, that's a horrible sign. 4
kilometres to the top of the Col de Sulur.
The individual time trial is called the Test of Truth, the Race of Truth. Maybe Adam Yates has been exposed.
As you said, nowhere to hide in the TT. When they're riding this sort of pace in the mountains, there's also nowhere to hide. You'll be quickly found out. That has happened to Romain Bardet. It is happening to others. We still have the Or category climb of the Col de Tourmalet to come. It's Amador who's turning the screws at the front along with Marc
It is
Soler.
Yates, you were right. It's Adam Yates. Mitchelton Scott, they built their tour around Adam Yates. Maybe they had an inside running. They thought Yates wasn't at his best. His brother Simon fights back. Come on, Adam, let's get on. Even if he does, the signs are bad for the Tourmalet that awaits.
He follows the pace of his twin brother, but that gap also just opening up very slightly. If he's already in this much trouble on the Sulur, that looks...
Game over.
That looks like game over for the rest of the day, you're right.
It's game over for his objectives in this race. He's been 4th in the past. He's won the white jersey as the best young rider. Mitchelton Scott now, they can't back him to try and finish high overall, surely.
They can't give up yet on this stage. They've got to hope it's just a bad moment and he'll ride his way through it and come good late in the stage. It's a very short stage and quite a quick start coming off the back of the time trial. Super intense effort. They've got to hope again. That's what it is, but it's not looking good.
This is just the start, Robbie. Another big day in the Pyrenees tomorrow. There's a really bad signs for Adam Yates. And Jack Haig has dropped back. Number 103 has dropped back to support Adam Yates. Number 56, that's Rudy Millard from Groupama FDJ. More riders being distanced. This is the front of the race, and Vincenzo Nibali, 2.6 kilometres remaining. is upping the tempo. He's responding to the move by Tim Wellens.
Wellens, he's on the hunt for the 10 points available at the top of this Category 1 climb. Nibali, he just sees an opportunity to get rid of a few more and go on the hunt for a stage win. And trying to herd one of the spectators out of the way as the peloton come. Good work from the spectators.
The spectators were good yesterday with Wout van Aert, with the cow on the side of the road. Even better today. It was impressive.
Sorry, Matt, I had to milk it while I had the opportunity.
Boom, boom. Dad jokes right at the fore. Wellens at the front, followed by Nibali. They're only 1:16 ahead of the closing peloton with the yellow jersey still there, Julian Alaphilippe. Zakarin now responds. He is the next to go.
Zakarin really has been the aggressor since they got onto the Col de Soleure, and he is looking like a first week in this Tour de France. The Russian, he's going across straight past the Total Direct Energy rider.
Calmejean, I think that'll be Siccar. That will be Roman Siccar, perhaps. Let's get a little bit closer.
Already gone. No, it is.
It is. It's Calmejean.
That's Leonard Kamna, the next man in the row.
This is Andre Amador, followed by Marc Soler. Movistar making a real mark on this race. Dylan van Baarle is still in that group. This is Fabio Aru at the back of the peloton. Number 136, that is Bauke Mollema. Aru is starting to get back towards what we expect from the Italian. Romain Bardet, though, is not. This is moral support for Romain Bardet from Michael Chiral and Tony Galopin. This has nothing with trying to save his hopes in this year's Tour de France. This is about supporting the person, not the athlete.
Yeah, supporting the person, but this could leave these riders with a long and lonely ride for themselves if Bardet decides this is it and steps off. But it would not surprise me.
Michael Chiral and Tony Galopin. Number 32 is Bardet's roommate throughout the tour. They are very close personal friends. Tony Galopin is one of the statesmen of the team. They're in no fear of being eliminated, even if Bardet does stop. Rui Costa is the rider who's with them in the white colours from UAE. Nibali in red. Gisbert now going forward. One of the big results for Ali Gisbert's career was a solo, and that was in the Tour Avenir. So he's a guy who can climb, and he is proving it today. 22-year-old Leonard Kamna in the red colours, fighting to stick with the more experienced Ilnaz Zakarin.
Well, Zakarin's come across a big gap. You saw the acceleration from the rest of the group, and you've got to wonder why it didn't go with him in the first place. He's making inroads. Wellens in polka dots, Vincenzo Nibali in the red and blue of Bahrain. Gilbert up there as well. Zakarin coming across. Leonard Kamna going in the wrong direction.
He's climbing well. It looks awkward, but it is very effective.
He's getting close, but he's not carrying the momentum he had. And Nibali, he ups the tempo again. He doesn't want a good climber like Zakarin with him, so go a bit quicker, make it harder for him. Happy with a group like take care of these two on the Tourmalet. And it's only a minute and a half to the peloton. You've got to race with everything you've got all the way through.
And based on the interview that we heard earlier on with Tim Wellens, he's part finish line racing for those 10 points in the King of the Mounts classification. So he's all in to the midway point on the stage. Vincenzo Nibali is thinking about the finish line at the Tourmalet. And Alejandro Valverde was still in the yellow jersey group.
A lot of Spanish fans on the road, a lot of the Basque fans. You just saw one of the Basque flags off to the right-hand side. Opa, Mikel, they're out supporting their riders, the Basque, and they're just fantastic.
Bauke Mollema now is being dropped, so Richie Porte for Trek Segafredo looks as if in that group with the yellow jersey, Porte is on his own. Nibali sprinting to the top of this climb. Stage victories and maybe even the King of the Mountains jersey. He's got the current leader of that classification with him. Wellens up alongside the Shark of Messina. A little look across to each other.
Vincenzo Nibali spoke pre-tour, before he knew Chris Froome wouldn't start, about coming to the Tour, going for stages, and maybe for the polka dot jersey. It's Nibali. Wellens has got him pinned up against the crowd. The Belgian will be too quick.
The sprint on for the points. Tim Wellens, he just nudged Vincenzo Nibali smartly into the crowd. The gate was Wellens Reeled it into the boats. He hits the brakes over the top.
Intentions are clear. He'd love a stage win, but he's starting to think a little bit longer term than that as well. 28 seconds behind.
And I'm not backing Ilnur Zakarin to catch Vincenzo Nibali on the descent.
Not only that, he'll be losing a lot of time.
I'm certain Nibali has gone back to plan A and chasing a spot on the podium in Paris with the polka dot jersey. Soignier at the top, fresh bidon for Ilnur Zakarin. And it's Andre Amador who is on the front for Movistar. And the yellow jersey of Julian Alaphilippe is right behind Mikael Landa.
You want to put me under pressure, huh? I'll just come and ride on the back of your team. You're riding for me. I'm happy here.
Movistar with 5 riders in that group and 1 still to catch on the road. Carlos Verona. So too number 3, which is Jonathan Castroviejo. This is Andre Amador, the world champion, his teammate, Valverde.
This takes me back to last year's Tour de France. We saw some really aggressive riding by the Movistar team. Very tactical as well, sending riders up the road, attacking board, a teammate to make some pace in between climbs. In the end, it blew up in their face and they were dropped. But this is a real show of force.
Richie Porte is there, Thibaut Pinot, Bennett, Kruijswijk. Rigoberto Urán there in the pink colours. Teammate with him. You would assume that it is Michael Woods, although Michael Woods has had a few crashes. Tanel Kange, the Estonian from that team, is also a world-class climber.
Movistar with Andre Amador on the front, they'll be looking to not only have put pressure on the climb, they'll be putting pressure on the descent. Amador is a very good descender. They'll be dragging them down there very quickly indeed. Adam Yates still not onto the back of this group. It does look to be, you can just go on the climb of the Col de Soleure.
It's definitely lights out for Romain Bardet. For the Mitchelton Scott team, they've been able to pick up a couple of stage victories already. Soon we'll be hearing from Nicolas Portal, the sports director for Ineos. I think this is Gisbert, and this is Wellens in front of him. And in the distance you can't see him, it'll be Nibali, and it is one of the best descenders in the world.
It is pressure on. Vincenzo Nibali also realises with just a minute and a half back to the... This is a place he can take advantage of some cautious riding back there to open up the gap and really have a crack at the stage win.
If you'd like watching fast descending, I suggest you get online and you have a look at Vincenzo Nibali descending off the Poggio last year to win Milan-San Remo ahead of the sprinters. That was one of the best descents you're ever likely to watch. Nibali put on a masterclass, and he is the professor of descending this afternoon. Straightens up and Wellens is able to get back to him, but as soon as they're in the corners, Nibali opens the gap again. The fromage of the Pyrenees. We've seen plenty of cows to help with the production of that cheese.
And here's the reinforcements for Movistar.
This is Carlos Verona. He will stay on the front and drive it through the Valley Road. They're really putting this race under pressure. Wellens, Nibali, Gisbert.
That Quintana has his heart set on a big performance, and not just an emotional, it's got to be this day because of the date. Nairo Quintana will be feeling really good. He will be having great confidence in his own ability. We saw him do it last year when the roads got above 2,000 metres altitude. He would not have his team ride like this if he wasn't feeling in the right.
Last year that win, high altitude finish above 2,000 metres, shortest road stage of the race. Today, shortest road stage of the race, high altitude finish above 2,000 metres. All the ingredients are there for Nairo Quintana. And I'm of the view his form this year is better than it was last year.
And it seems to suit him really well. A short stage that's intense from start to finish. No let up, no tempo riding on the climbs. Keep everybody at the limit for as long as possible. And then when he gets to those higher altitudes is where we have often seen the Colombians come into their own. So maybe another man that's liking this is Rigoberto Urán.
Him relaxed at the back. Classic Rigoberto Urán. Rockstar style, comes in late, He's got everything just at his feet. He'll never panic Rigoberto Urán. He was very good in the time trial yesterday. I think Rigoberto Urán can win today's stage.
I think he can. I'm leaning towards Quintana.
I'm leaning to Urán.
One of the other Colombians would expected so to France yesterday, and that was Egan Bernal.
And today, surely he has to work for Geraint Thomas.
You would think so. Egan Bernal, he said himself yesterday after the time trial, it was a bad day to have a bad day. Who knows if he's already back, but I think you're right. The hierarchy in that team now has got to be first for Thomas. If Bernal doesn't have to work, see what he can also do to stay up there.
Green jersey Robbie in the mountains. Peter Sagan hasn't yet been caught by yellow.
A bit of discomfort early on as we come past l'Église Saint-Félix in Ocun. But Peter Sagan got himself into the breakaway, helped his friend Vincenzo Nibali get away. Once the pace went on the Souleur, ease it back, roll over the top, relax on the descent, on for a free ride, and he'll come up to the top of the Tourmalet to collect another green jersey. Hearing through our race centre, Adam Yates is still 30 seconds behind this group. There's a little bit more descending to come. I'm not so sure they can close 30 seconds. Simon and Adam plus Jack Haig.
This is Vincenzo Nibali in the red colour. Leader of the King of the Mountains classification in third spot, Tim Wellens. He's extended his advantage today. Vincenzo Nibali wants the polka dot jersey. He's shown all the signs. He said that he was aiming for stages and the King of the Mountains jersey. It was only when those guys had their bad luck with the crashes that he started to talk about. But there's the gap for Adam Yates behind the peloton. Tête de la course, the leading breakaway group of three, they're off in the distance. Yates could almost see the convoy of cars behind the peloton. I think he will be able to make contact again. He's going to spend a lot of energy in the process and a lot of energy of his brother Simon and his teammate Jack Haig.
Well, over the last 2 minutes, they haven't gotten any closer. They're still at 31 seconds. In fact, they were into 29. They are losing a little bit of time to this group. I'm not confident for them.
He's been a stage winner at the Tour of Limousine. He was fifth at the Mont Ventoux Challenge earlier on this year, and he's riding the Tour for the third time, and he's only 24. He's got a lot of experience for a 24-year-old. Gap for Yates, it's only a couple of hundred metres behind that main peloton. I do think he'll get there, but then they pay a really hefty price. But look at the gap for Romain Bardet. He's almost 3 kilometres behind the yellow jersey group. Here is a chat with Yates before the start of the stage. Oh, sorry, a little bit of confusion. Yates is at 10 seconds behind. Next, we're going to be hearing from Thibaut Pinot. So Yates is at 10 seconds behind. He will get there.
Well, if I knew Yates, well, if it was, he was at 30 seconds like we were seeing, but that wasn't his group.
They've created the barrage, though, Robbie, to make him earn every metre. It's going to be difficult. I thought the convoy was going to be the launching pad to get him there. The UCI, the commissaires, have done the right thing by creating that barrage.
They have. Not in this race situation. You do not get a free ride back across when you're a contender and you've been dropped.
Let's now go back to the start of the race with Thibaut Pinot, the Frenchman from Groupama FDJ, as Jack Haig is closing it down. Yates will return. He makes a very good point, Thibaut Pinot. You can only make a plan that your legs can execute. Clearly, he's confident, though, with the amount of work we've seen his teammates doing from Groupama FDJ. This is the second group on the road. The red colours at the back of that group. That was Ilnaz Zakarin. These are the riders they're chasing. And again, into a technical part of the descent. And the gap that has been opened up by Vincenzo Nibali. As soon as it gets technical, Vincenzo puts distance into his breakaway companions. .57 seconds the gap for the chasers. Zakarin has been caught by Luis Leon Sanchez and others.
The problem for Vincenzo Nibali, gapping these two who have been working smoothly with him, puts himself on his own, and he's got an 18-kilometre section through the sprint, through the feed zone, and to the foot of the Tourmalet. You'd be much better off with 3. So he's only a few seconds in front. He'll probably ease up and wait. It'll be the best thing to do in terms of going for the stage win.
He's already around the next corner as Wellens and Gisbert are still exiting the previous one.
So they'll come back together. I think it's Vincenzo Nibali just making sure they push on as fast as possible, give them something to chase. Also gives them a marker on the descent. Follow my line. He's 3-4 seconds in front. They see his entry point, a little bit of braking. They can judge it much better too. Makes them better descenders.
And the complete opposite to that, in the group at 28 seconds, Ilnur Zakarin went over the top of the climb ahead of Sanchez, Sikar, Kamna and Kalmajan. He's now been caught by those 4 riders. Position in that group, and every single corner they go through, this is the peloton containing the yellow jersey of Julian Alaphilippe as it swells again. Number 3, Jonathan Castro-Viejo returns.
Yep, so Yates is back there. Guy coming into the race as a genuine contender, having before finished 4th overall, having won the white jersey for the best young rider in the Tour de France in the past, and then being dropped on the Category 1 climb when the real focus of the day is the big one at the end, the Tourmalet, the Or category climb to the finish. His morale has taken a beating.
It has a real beating. He needs a fresh start, Romain Bardet. He looks like he needs a holiday. Not just physically, but psychologically, perhaps more so than even physically.
Group that formed on the Salur is going to come back together before we get to the foot of the Tourmalet.
And I fear Nibali today is hurting his chances for a future stage victory. 48 seconds in front of the yellow jersey group. Surely they'll be caught on the Col de Tourmalet. 1 kilometre to the intermediate sprint. Nibali, though, he's a man with loads of experience. And he's a guy that traditionally in Grand Tours gets better into the 3rd week. Here are the chasers. They've cleared out all the vehicles. Not even the Mavic neutral service with the motorbike is between these 2 groups. It's only 11 seconds. And 48 seconds back to the peloton.
Well, everything closing in. And I think we're going to have a complete front peloton of sorts. A small one, but a complete group when we get to the foot of the Tourmalet. There's Andre Amador. And along with Carlos Verona, that will be their job done. Get to the foot of the Tourmalet, then it's going to be up to the likes of Marc Soler, Alejandro Valverde, Mikel Landa and Nairo Quintana to see if they can complete the execution of the plan.
I'd like to know the mood inside the Ineos team car, whether they are feeling the pressure of Movistar. That's what Movistar is trying to achieve. They want to put the team of the defending champion under pressure.
They also want to put Alaphilippe under pressure. Yates back of the peloton looking for drinks, both Simon and Adam.
Almost at the intermediate sprint. Wellens in front. Gisbert in 2nd position. Nibali in red. This will not impact on the leaderboard in the battle for the green jersey. Wellens won over the top of the 2nd climb on today's stage, the Col de Salur, and he will win the intermediate sprint. Gisbert at 24 shown real maturity, not disrupting the rhythm. Nibali's not interested in this minor prize.
No, Tim Wellens, I doubt he believes in his chances to win the stage, even to take points on the Tourmalet, so just getting whatever he can out of the rest of this stage, the Belgian, and that's why that longer turn. So I'll do a much longer one if I can just roll through the sprint point as first. Still a few points left on the line for the chasing peloton. I'm sure we'll see Peter Sagan also do a turn through the intermediate sprint point and just add to his total and extend what is already a very large lead in the points competition.
And then once they get to the other side of town, it will then be into the feed zone. Peter Sagan now in the green jersey, making the most of the minor points that are on offer. No need to look over the shoulder, Peter. There is no one in that group that will challenge you today. Extends his lead further, on target for a 7th victory in the points classification. 3 riders from Mitchelton Scott at the back of the group.
This is La Abbatiale, Notre Dame de Somption and Saint-Savin.
And this one, Benedictine monastery that was founded in around about the 9th century on the ruins of an old Roman palace. In 945, the Counts of Bigorre richly endowed the abbey by purchasing the land and giving them the opportunity with the Benedictine order to build the abbey in this position. It was declared part of the national estate during the French Revolution, and throughout the 1990s, they did a lot of refurbishment, and it now houses a museum of religious art.
This is the Pic Midi d'Ossau, here high in the Pyrenees. And this the Pic du Midi de Bigorre. The observatory we saw earlier on in the broadcast, right at the start, and that's even overlooking the Tourmalet, well above, around 3,000 metres, just a touch under.
Just
2,850 something.
Correct. That's roughly what it stands. And it was good to see earlier on as well. There was somebody there dressed up as an astronaut today, marking the 50th anniversary of the moon landing. This is the leading group. Calmejean at the back in the blue colours of Total Direct Energy. He's found his form. He, by his own admission, was really struggling in the first week. He's now been in a couple of important breakaways. Wellens with the King of the Mountains jersey. Nibali collecting the musette bag from the side of the road. If you have just joined us, let's now take a look back at the stage so far and show you what you might have missed out on. This is the Bardet group with pretty much all of his teammates around him. 7 riders from AG2R Le Mondial in this group. The only one missing, Alexis Villimos, I didn't spot there. It's a sad sight to look at the size of this group with non-climbers in here and lots of them.
Missing a lot of sprinters. This is Romain Sicard at the front of the race for Total Direct Energy, trying to get himself onto the foot of the Tourmalet first as they ride up the valley road. Vincenzo Nibali, he just continues to tap out the rhythm. So don't worry about attacking up the road. Let's try and work together, see if we can possibly open this gap. If the peloton take their foot off the gas through the feed zone, we might be able to take a few more seconds.
For Romain Sicard of Total Direct Energy, this is as close as he'll get to his home region. He's from the Basque country on the French side of the border.
Well, looking to impress the family and the fans and not taking their foot off the gas whatsoever is Team Movistar.
Peter Sagan in the break, mopping up the points from that main peloton at the intermediate sprint. There's Sicard in the distance, opening up a small advantage.
The rest of the group seem to be letting Vincenzo Nibali, or putting the pressure on Vincenzo Nibali to do the bulk of the work in the pacemaking on the front of this group, and that time gap is coming down 39 seconds, 40. It's going up a little bit for Sicard, but that main part of that breakaway group are drifting back towards the peloton.
10 years ago, he was the big hope of French cycling. He won the Tour l'Avenir for the future stars of the Tour de France. The same year, in a really hilly course in Mendrisio, the World Championships in Switzerland, he won the under-23 road race solo. Intermediate sprint, Wellens collecting the 20 points for Peter Sagan in 9th position, 7 more points in the race for green. Here he is, Romain Sicard, our sole leader at 31 seconds ahead of the yellow jersey group.
And it's a technical descent, so you've got to think of those numbers in terms of a really winding technical descent where you don't get a long straight section to build up really high speeds for a long period. 3.2 kilometres to the climb of today's stage. It is an all-category climb, and at the top, as well as the stage win, there's also the Souvenir Jacques Godet, the prize, going to the winner on top of the Tourmalet. The highest point here in the Pyrenees they'll race. It's the highest paved road in the French Pyrenees.
Not too far away from the Spanish border, super motivated today, and their Colombian star, Nairo Quintana, is priority number 1. Fear in a similar way to Simon Clarke when he was in the breakaway, that once they hit the bottom of the climb, the tank will be empty. And for Romain Sicard, this with the most combative prize. He has not won a race in the pro peloton. 10 years since his last victory. That was the Under-23 World Championships in Mendrisio 2009. Is break it down into bite-sized pieces. Now he breaks it down into this 20-kilometre climb.
This is really good for Sicard. Tailwind up the valley. And him pushing the lead out to nearly a minute and a half now.
Mikel Landa now on the radio. He's had a tough tour, one disrupted by bad luck.
But you never know what you're going to get with Mikel Landa. You said priority number one for Movistar is Nairo Quintana. I'm wondering if that's just what they're telling Mikel Landa now as a reminder. Yeah, but the enigmatic Spaniard so often does whatever he wants.
And he's reported to be going to Bahrain Merida next year. Quintana reported to be going to RKS Samsung. And Movistar are on the hunt for Enric Mas, who wears the white jersey today at the Koenig Quick-Step.
His interview this morning, he said, we're going to get everything for Julien. We are starting to believe he can get to Paris in yellow.
Underneath the 20-kilometre marker, the climb of the Tourmalet is about to start. He just nags away uphill. This is a gradient of around about 2% or so, maybe even a little bit more than that for Rome. As the real climb for the Frenchman is about to start. Here come the chasers. Gisbert at the front, followed then by Calmejean. When you're not here throughout the Tour de France, it really is a very peaceful, calming region. This is the Chateau Sainte-Marie, which we're now getting a chance to look at. This was built by the Count of Bigorre back in the 10th century. It housed also the Hospital of St. John, later the Knights of Malta, then the English garrison during the 100 Years' War. There are the numbers, 19 kilometres.
These are the first chasers. Elie Gilbert, the man in white and black, and Lilian Calmejean.
Still Movistar at the front. Astana coming around the outside, making sure that they position Jakob Fuglsang. Richie Porte is in there with one teammate. He's got Volker Mollema for support.
And Richie Porte, he has promised that he is going to for when the big mountains start. That is today. He said he's feeling fresh, he's feeling good, he's feeling confident. Despite losing a lot of time, he's ready to go.
He has always spoken about week 3. And the Alps are still to come. Col de Tourmalet. Carlos Verona, one last time to the well.
Peter Sagan and the men around him, they've decided that is enough. We're going to get to the finish okay. With him, Ilnur Zakarin, the man who was in the breakaway. Also, Vincenzo Nibali, Thies Benoot, he will play no further role.
And Kamna, who was in that earlier breakaway. So once they realise they're caught, save the energy and look for the next opportunity to try and win a stage. That's Ali Gisbert at the front for Arkea Samsung. It's still Movistar. Ineos, still with plenty of riders in that group. They've still got 4 there. It looks like Jonathan Castroviejo has returned. And Mikhail Kwiatkowski. 3 riders in there for Jumbo-Visma. Supporting Steven Kruijswijk, George Bennett and Laurens de Plus.
This is now Gilbert going away from Lilian Calmejean and going in search of Roman Sicard.
Calmejean had been sitting behind him the whole time. Shows the strength of Gisbert.
At least for Elie Gilbert, he had that tailwind up the valley, so it didn't make a lot of difference to him, and he's chasing that one man in front. Now he goes in search of Sicard. The peloton, they are around 45 seconds behind him.
A 24-year-old riding the Tour for the front of him. Or have they? No, they haven't. Not just yet. They should be, because this is the man he is chasing. This is Roman Sicard. One last bidon. The steady nature of this climb, it does suit Geraint Thomas. And Dylan van Baarle.
I agree with you completely. It suits Thomas. It does get steeper at the top, but remember what he did on La Planche de Belfi when the gradients were up to 24%. Really interrupted. The altitude training camp snowed out. The crash in the Tour de Suisse today will give us a much better indication than yesterday did in the time trial. Sheltered Julien Alaphilippe.
Also in that group, Jakob Fuglsang was there for the Astana team. He's got quite a few teammates around him. The white colours of UAE Emirates. Dan Martin is in the group. Rigoberto Urán is there. He has as Balco Mollema, as Ali Gilbert is getting across to Roman Sigard. And he is at his limit. Off from the front of the peloton for the Movistar team. It's now Andre Amador who is setting the pace. Roman Sigard. Does Gilbert force the pressure or have a little bit of a rest? It's a little bit of a rest. He'll have a drink and then he needs to maintain this rhythm. Somehow. Easier said than done.
Because it's not quick enough. He needs to go straight past him, which he does.
Straight away. He's showing real maturity for a 24-year-old.
And looking straight away, it wasn't a look as if, say, are you coming with me? Am I dropping you already?
And he is. That is the answer. Not happy with the tempo. This has been impressive.
So Elie Gilbert, he's offloaded Kalmajan out of his wheel. He's ridden across to his teammate Sicard, and he's also got rid of him. And it's the young Frenchman from Arkea Samsic who now pushes on the lower slopes of the Tourmalet.
It's nice to be having this conversation about him as opposed to Gianni Moscon. Let's put that behind us as Elie Gilbert is applying the pressure at the front, hunting for a stage victory.
More riders out the back now. Lutsenko and Luis Leon Sanchez from Astana going out the back of the bunch. Their job is done for today. They've supported Jakob Fuglsang. This is Kalmajan. He's been swallowed up and spat out.
Back of the peloton, Mitchelton Scott out of the saddle. That looked like one of the Yates brothers.
It looked more like Adam's style than Simon's, but we didn't get a read of the number. And yeah, of course, being identical twins, it is somewhat difficult.
And Alejandro Valverde, Nairo Quintana. In that group, Mikel Landa. So well represented at the front, the Movistar team. 10% gradient.
This is Gilbert, the young French peloton. He's matching Andre Amador, pedal stroke for pedal stroke, but there's still more to come from Movistar. Marc Soler lining up behind, ready to do a turn of pace.
Behind Alaphilippe is his teammate in white, and that is the best young rider, Enric Mas, the facial expression of Egan Bernal.
Baring the teeth. Dan Martin gone once and returned. Now it's gone twice. I don't see him coming back again. In sweat to a very, very warm day out there as well. The Spaniards, they'll be loving it. Maybe the Welshmen less so.
Yellow everywhere. But it's a man in white for Arkea Samsic. The smallest or the second smallest budget in the race, Arkea Samsic, behind Wanty Group Gilbert. And their 24-year-old French climber, Elie Gilbert, is the man who was leading the charge up one of the most famous climbs in the history of the Tour. The 83rd time onto the Col de Tourmalet, first scaled in 1910 in this race. Still Movistar, still Amador. As Balco Mollema somehow has made his way to the front of that group. He's been yo-yoing on and off the back. He's towed Richie Porte around. He's been there to support him. Balco Mollema is doing an outstanding job.
Well, Porte back towards the back of the group again. So Mollema, he brought Porte up towards the front, right up to the wheel of Julien Alaphilippe. Since dropped further back.
This is Mollema with the yellow helmet on and the white and red colours. Trek Segafredo leading the team's classification. EF in the pink colours, Education First. They have Rigoberto Urán and Tanel Kangout in that group.
Really a game effort by Elie Gilbert, riding against the same man over the last 10 or 12 kilometres now. Andre Amador, only 11 kilometres to go. This has been a super effort by the Costa Rican on the front of the peloton, still with Soler, Valverde, Landa and Quintana to come.
Riding to instruction at the front, Andre Amador. Access to the Pic de Midi, the observation tower that we saw some footages of a little earlier. Number 91, Rigoberto Urán, hard to read the body language, often sits towards the back, rode well on the time trial yesterday.
Yet some riders prefer to just drift through the group, not hold one position, but go with how the legs feel. Castroviejo, he's dropped. He'll switch things off and just roll his way up to the top.
No benefit in Castroviejo trying to limit the damage. He needs to actually save the energy for the next day, as you alluded to moments ago.
At Team Ineos, they don't think about it as the individual's energy reserve. It's the team's energy reserve, and you're a part of that machine. It's done for Amador. Huge job by number 63, the Costa Rican.
That was impressive. That is what a domestic does when they empty the tank. He has come to a grinding halt. Bilbao now number 72 for Astana. He is really suffering.
Well, now Marc Soler will have gone to the front of the group for Movistar. Richie Porte starts to move up because it's becoming more urgent, more important to sit forward. Riders are now starting to be offloaded. Balcamola been going back as well. Nairo Quintana now a long way in the back of the group.
And a long way forward in the saddle, which is always a sign of suffering. Number 12 is Emmanuel Buchmann. He's in 6th place overall. 91 is Rigoberto Urán. The French champion who says he wants to be a car salesman, Warren Barguil, is at the front. Don't worry about selling cars, worry about winning bike races. You're one of the best in the world. The peace and quiet, the tranquility at the top. Ali Gisbert about to be caught, but this is deserving of the red number for the most combative. He should get a spot on the podium.
It's been a great ride by Gilbert. Richie Porte again, another acceleration. So just hopping around riders who are starting to be distanced.
This is Roman Kreuziger, the best placed overall for Dimension Data. Started the day in 19th. He fights on. He will fight all the way to the finish to limit the damage.
Aru now also being dropped. No surprise, it's the start of a big comeback.
Quintana is being dropped. Movistar doing all the work at the front, and Nairo Quintana is being dropped.
Well, this is now a huge surprise.
Now it's all for Mikel Landa. Number 8, that is Dylan van Baarle. It's been extraordinary for the Dutchman to survive this long. He's a specialist for the classics such as the Tour of Flanders and Paris-Roubaix.
Well, after Quintana, the next is Alejandro Valverde, but he is the man at the front of the group.
It's for Landa. This is for Mikel Landa, who is 3rd in line for Movistar. It's Soler, Valverde, the world champion, then Mikel Landa.
So maybe those injuries for Quintana are much worse than we thought. He said, don't make a big deal of it. It'll only make the people at home worry. Well, they are obviously affecting him because he's going out the back and his team is continuing to drive it at the front.
And there he is. Nairo Quintana is all on his own. And the composure of the yellow jersey, Julian Alaphilippe looks as comfortable as anybody in that leading group.
You can hide for a little while in the Tour de France. You can bluff it for a bit. When you get in the high mountains like this, eventually the truth comes out. And I think now we're discovering the extent of the injury to Nairo Quintana from that crash a couple of days ago.
He looked so good in the first week. He looked good on stage 6 of La Planche de Belleville. Twice second, once third. The podium will...
But hurting on the inside, Nairo Quintana.
The telltale sign is how far forward he was in the saddle when we looked at him at the back of the group. And over the shoulder, this is Marc Soler.
Trying to salvage it for Quintana, sending Soler back. In the meanwhile, it was Valverde on the front.
Soler.
Do they now stop riding at the front? Soler's gone back for Quintana, he's got him. Aru is there behind him. Dylan van Baarle is the man in front of Marc Soler. That's the gap to the main group, and now it is Ineos who've taken over the pacemaking. So Movistar, so aggressive, been on the front for most of the stage.
Barguil now attacks, the French national champion. Says he wants to be a car salesman. Well, see if he can buy a pair of these wheels. Can they track him down? 6 minutes, 39 seconds
problem
behind.
For Barguil, he stopped pedalling. Chain problem, mechanical, he's got it back on.
Perhaps he was going to the big chain ring.
Whatever he was doing, he flipped the chain off.
But he stayed calm. Richie Porte and Balcamola at the back of this group for Trek Segafredo.
Now it's Wout Poels.
Laurens de Plus is here for Jumbo-Visma, and in second position for Jumbo-Visma is George Bennett.
A lot of talking within Team Ineos. Here's the attack, back of the group. So he starts his attack from 30 metres behind the lead of the group.
He's found his rhythm now, Warren Barguil. Arkea Samsung
They are riding a great stage.
Do they really need to hire Nairo Quintana? That's the rumour, that Quintana is going across next year. This group has really slowed down as Dylan van Baarle has recaught them.
That was the talking we saw from Ineos. We saw Egan Bernal on the radio. Thomas behind him looking like he was suffering. The pace was being set by Wout Poels. Now they've eased off. Van Baarle comes back to the front. In control at the moment with just Barguil off the front.
Warren Barguil. He gets the support even by the Basque spectators. He starts the day 6:39 down in the overall classification. But at what point does Geraint Thomas and Team Ineos start to worry about the yellow jersey, about Julian Alaphilippe, who leads by 1 minute and 26 seconds? And Wout Poels perhaps is asking exactly the same question of Geraint Thomas. They're in deep conversation. Number 71, Jakob Fuglsang. He said yesterday for the first time, stepping onto the team bus, he didn't feel his knee from the crash on stage 1.
Time performer Barguil, and with 8 kilometres to go, a 12-second gap. None of the big favourites have made a move as yet, so I'm not going to call him as a possible stage winner at this moment, but a great ride by Arkea Samsic. We've seen Gilbert, we've seen riders in the break, and now their team leader off the front at the hottest point of the race so far.
Can we go possible with a hesitation? Because he is making the race, and that is the destination, the mythical Col de Tourmalet.
That is the top of the climb, and look at the fans on the hillside. They are up here in their thousands lining the roads.
What a
here
stadium.
in the Pyrenees.
And it's been closed for a long time. Look at how far down those camper vans are. You're making your way up on foot. The man affectionately known as Wawa is wowing the French public. 15 seconds. I'm hearing you about the fact that the big favourites, they haven't accelerated yet. There's still 7.7 kilometres to go, but this is the best he's looked in 2 years by a long shot.
Oh, most definitely. That's an easy one to pick. It's the best he's been in a long time. Team Ineos taking responsibility. And are they lulling the rest of the favourites into a false sense of security? Maybe they're just trying to go a little bit slower at a pace that suits a Thomas that's possibly suffering. He wants to win on the Tourmalet. He's talked the talk, and Pinot goes to the front. It's David Gaudu who's away from Ineos. We see it often, the acceleration. It's not followed by the British team, and they try to wind it back in. But with a man in form like Thibaut Pinot, can they do it? It's panic stations a little bit behind. Jakob Fuglsang reacts.
So too does Mikel Landa from Movistar.
And Alejandro Valverde, he follows the wheel. The riders from Jumbo-Visma, Steven Kruijswijk, and not a move yet by Ineos. They are sensing a weakness.
At the back, 25, the white jersey. That is Enric Mas. 136 with the yellow number on. That is Bauke Mollema. Wout Poels is still in this group. De Plus, Kruijswijk and Bennett for Jumbo-Visma. Kruijswijk is looking really dangerous for yellow. Richie Porte is still in that group. He slots himself in behind the white jersey of Enric Mas. But the gap is starting to open for Mas behind the yellow of Alaphilippe. Gaudu, the 22-year-old of French cycling, setting the tempo. This is Kangert now being dropped in pink.
Bauke Mollema struggling at the back. Richie Porte looking over his shoulder, seeing how much room he's got to drift when the pace comes on. Barguil still punching it out, 18 seconds in front.
Hasn't lost any real time though. It's been an acceleration, but not any significant time lost for Warren Barguil. This is Mollema, the Dutchman, third in the 2011 Volta a España.
In front of him, last man on the group now is Richie Porte. Mollema struggles his way back into the wheels.
He's a picture of suffering, Bauke Mollema, and he knows how to go deep. This is Gaudu, followed by Pinot. It's then Fuglsang, Movistar with Landa. For the first time this morning, we heard Thibaut Pinot talking up the fight.
Looking at the faces, the two that look the most comfortable in the group, with the Frenchman on the front, Gaudu and Pinot.
Volker Mollema still fighting, still clawing his way back. One pedal stroke at a time. Richie Porte is at the rear of the group.
Barguil takes another second on the chasers.
3 riders remaining. Number 1, you can see the hips from number 1, Geraint Thomas. They were starting to rock and roll.
Usually so solid in the seat, Geraint Thomas. Now a bit of movement, rocking and rolling. Quintana, he's being further distanced. He is now 36 seconds behind the group of the Maillot Jaune.
They're those little signs. Sitting forward in the saddle, the hips rocking and rolling forward a bit more, a bigger gear than normal as opposed to the souplesse of a high pedaling cadence. Geraint Thomas looks to be under a little pressure.
Warren Barguil holding more or less steady, 17 seconds, and we've spoken so much about it, about the defending champion of the Tour, Geraint Thomas. He may get found out the lack of preparation, and it was going to take a long time in this Tour to get to that point. This is the first proper big mountain.
Here are the gaps on the road. The far right, Yates a long way behind. Then it's Quintana. He's at 300 metres behind the yellow jersey group. And then out in front on his own to the tune of 15 seconds is Warren Barguil. Fernando Quintana, he's 29 years of age, but it feels like his best is behind him. He hasn't been anywhere near it for the last 2 years by comparison to our expectations of him. He's won the Giro, he's won the Vuelta.
And we just can't know the effect that that crash on stage
true.
11 has had on him, whether he had it in him coming into this Tour or not, and it's so hard to get a read on Nairo Quintana.
We'll never know the answer to that question, the size of the impact of that crash.
12 seconds now for Warren Barguil. David Gaudu is making inroads on the lead, down to 10 seconds. Thibaut Pinot, he's got his heart set on this one. He's ridden this climb so many times. You spoke about his fastest time up there, and we talk sometimes about Strava records. His best time is 10 seconds inside the Strava record. Barguil, he sees that he seemed to ease off.
He knows he's about to be caught, so he's riding smartly. He's saving something for the next attack. That's clever by Warren Barguil. This is not Barguil, full stick, trying to fend them off. The yellow jersey is still there, Julian Alaphilippe. He dares to dream, so too do the French. They want him to believe. And at number 1, Geraint Thomas is a long way back in that group.
Suffering or bluffing?
Give me 5.7 kilometres and I'll tell you the answer. That's the beauty of the Tour this year. It is wide open. Gaudu, he ups the tempo. They see the capture and they see the gap starting to open up behind. The young Frenchman is applying pressure.
Barguil, he's slotted back in fifth wheel, just ahead of the 3 riders from Jumbo-Visma. There goes one overboard for Ineos. That's
and
Wout
Richie
Poels.
Porte is also overboard. He was good yesterday against the clock. Porte is now really suffering. 15th overall at 4:44. He might still improve his position overall today, but this is difficult. Enric Mas is the next.
Enric Mas, he was the GC hope for De Koning Quickstep coming into the Tour de France, but it's Julian Alaphilippe in the yellow jersey who is still holding strong in the group just ahead of him. Oh, the teeth starting to come out from Thibaut Pinot. Jakob Fuglsang, he is cruising near the front and looking good. Julian Alaphilippe out of the saddle, dancing on those pedals like he always does. I'm tipping him to hold yellow.
He's starting to become a big contender. Wout Poels is at the back of the group. He latches on with the world champion, Alejandro Valverde. Egan Bernal and Geraint Thomas still in this group for Ineos.
Alaphilippe tracking Team Ineos. He almost hasn't left the wheel of Geraint Thomas. Valverde now at the back of the group. This is Poels. His job is done.
Not much left for him to do. Wout Poels is now being distanced. I don't think he'll come back a second time.
He's gone for...
He took a long-range attack to Alpe d'Huez. We're seeing the suffering now of Julian Alaphilippe. He is digging deep into the barrel. There can't be much left in the tank, can there, with all the race? And they've raced for more than 2,000 kilometres already.
But you know, it's hard to tell with Julian Alaphilippe if it's suffering or selling the show. Buy a ticket and get on board with Julian Alaphilippe. It's always spectacular. And look at how small the group is, and he's still there. Never been in this position before in a Grand Tour.
Whichever it is, I'm buying 2 tickets and I'm bringing in a guest front seat to watch Julian Alaphilippe.
Thomas makes a move up the inside, improving his position in the red, up and around the riders of Jumbo-Visma.
Just to remind everybody, he's still there. And he is. He slots himself alongside Jakob Fuglsang. Bernal comes with him.
Little flatter section, so taking advantage of just flattening out. Gain a bit of momentum, ride your way around the group, find some shelter from the wind as well, because there's a few little turns where the breeze will hit them. Anything is enough.
Valverde still suffering at the back, the world champion. The yellow jersey, Alaphilippe, he sits behind the French champion, Barguil. In front of Barguil, it's Emmanuel Buchmann. Then the pink colours of EF Rigoberto Uran. 3 there for Jumbo-Visma, Kruijswijk, De Plus and Bennett. Mikel Landa is here for Movistar in 4th position. Jakob Fuglsang sits in 3rd spot. At the front is David Gaudu, followed by his team leader, Thibaut Pinot. 27 seconds back to Enric Mas, and that is in the vicinity of Richie Porte.
Well, Richie Porte had vowed to start going on the attack, trying to get back some time. It's not working out so far for him today. Gaudu, he goes again. The young Frenchman, 22 years old, he'd been riding on the front, setting the tempo for Thibaut Pinot, and now he is on the attack, looking for the stage win.
His role is as the pacemaker. He's more than the pacemaker. He is charging up this climb. The reaction now coming from George Bennett. He tries to chase.
Jumbo-Visma coming to the front. Egan Bernal moving around now onto the wheel of the men in black and yellow.
But with that acceleration, as Warren Barguil has been dropped, Geraint Thomas slipped to the rear of the group.
Well, there'll be directors sportifs, they'll be sitting in the cars, they'll be watching a broadcast and deciding their tactics on what they see in the rest of the group. They'll be really paying attention to Thomas slipping back. Alaphilippe, he just continues to surprise. Rigoberto Uran on the right, number 91. Still right in this for a stage win, the Colombian.
He is. He hasn't put his nose in the wind yet.
They're coming back to Gaudu.
They are.
Alaphilippe, he stays with Thomas. Wherever he's been, Alaphilippe has followed.
And now David Gaudu has been reeled back in, and it's Laurens De Plus who has done the job.
De Plus, Bennett, Steven Kruijswijk, Emmanuel Buchmann, number 12 up the front for Bora, also riding a fantastic stage. Landa is next to him. Gaudu, he now goes backwards. That was it. Maybe it was asked of him to go on the attack, do everything you can for Thibaut Pinot.
Pinot was putting his hand in the pocket to get a bite to eat. David, the great pacemaker. Fantastic performance by David Gaudu. Barguil now fighting for survival. He's getting his way towards the top 10 overall as the yellow jersey, Julian Alaphilippe, is still here.
Fuglsang now to the back of the group. He'd been riding comfortably in around 3rd wheel for most of the climb. Now he slid backwards. Nairo Quintana, he is 1 minute 50 now behind the front of the race. A big loss for the Colombian.
And Porte and Enric Mas at 42 seconds behind. Jumbo-Visma, the man on the front is their new recruit this season. That is Laurens De Plus. He's the best Belgian climber of his generation.
They've won the team's time trial. They've won a stage with Teunissen, stage with Van Aert, stage with Groenewegen, and the climbers are now getting their chance to represent. They have been the team of the Tour. And Steven Kruijswijk, 3rd overall coming into the stage. He will also be dreaming of yellow. But at the moment, it's the man pulling faces who's wearing it, and they're not getting rid of him.
The world champion, though, they have managed to cause a gap to Alejandro Valverde. It's extraordinary at 39 years of age that he is still here, and he's still a factor. Laurens De Plus applying the pressure. Bennett looks so comfortable. He was dragged to the Tour for this reason. And speaking of dragging his way back, it's Warren Barguil. The French champion is on a good one.
Julian Alaphilippe, a sideways look at Barguil. Alaphilippe, he's bobbing up and down and still in the wheel of Thomas and still hanging on the back of this group. It only gets harder towards the top. The altitude increases and so does the gradient.
And at the moment, it's Jumbo-Visma riding with confidence. Tête de la Course with Kruijswijk and his teammates. It's then the Port group, along with Enric Mas. They're at 43 seconds. Next in line is Nairo Quintana. Yates is a long way behind, and Bardet is well and truly gone.
This is now the steep section of the climb that they are on. 3 kilometres to go. It kicks up. Average gradient over this kilometre, 11%.
That is brutal, and the altitude starts to touch on almost 2,000 metres. Valverde, this is De Plus, followed by Bennett, then it's Kruijswijk. The human coat hanger still looks good.
Look at the face of Kruijswijk, relaxed, controlled. Bookman still looking good at the front of the group as well. Fuglsang here, number 71 at the back, just in front of the French champion Barguil. Yellow jersey glued to the wheel of Thomas. Now it's George Bennett. De Plus is done.
Bennett checks across the shoulder. Great job by De Plus. Bennett ups the tempo. You can see the way the group thins out a little. Congratulations, 83. Switch off. Save your legs for tomorrow, because your team leader is on a good one. He sits in second. It's Steven Kruijswijk.
It's George Bennett, the Kiwi. He ups the tempo.
Faster.
Steven Kruijswijk.
He said faster.
Faster, George. Faster. Wind it up. I've got more.
The yellow jersey's riding a huge gear. He's muscling his way to the top of the climb.
He is doing an exceptional job, Julian Alaphilippe, and as always, flicking the legs, trying to shake the lactic acid out of those quadriceps. Alejandro Valverde, he's dropped further back. His teammate Nairo Quintana, no longer a factor either. It's at the front of the race, and it's Jumbo-Visma putting the pressure on, and the yellow jersey will not let go.
And he will be in yellow tonight. He is not losing a minute and 26 seconds in the last 2.3 kilometres.
I'm going to hold off on agreeing just yet. It is brutal towards the top. Really, the steepest sections coming up towards the finish line. We're hitting the altitudes, and when you suddenly pop, you go bang.
Well, his buffer to Steven Kruijswijk, who sits in second spot, is 2 minutes and 12 seconds. His advantage over the defending champion, second overall, is 1:26. To Geraint Thomas, the stringing out, the pressure of Bennett.
Bennett's now got them single file. We saw Kruijswijk ask him to go faster. That is just begging for an attack to come from the Dutchman, from Jumbo-Visma.
Well, the Kiwis, they're famous for their climbers, most significantly Sir Edmund Hillary. They've got a good one again, and this time it's Bennett, who loves the high mountains.
11 men remain in the front of the race. 2 from Jumbo-Visma, 2 from Ineos, and the rest are on their own.
Bennett, Kruijswijk, then Landa. Next in line is Bookman, followed by Bernal, then Thomas. Another move coming around the outside. It's Thibaut Pinot. His teammates have done some work. It's just to get to the front. That's to move around traffic. There he is, a little grimace. That was hard, just to get alongside Kruijswijk.
This is shaping up to be a group sprint at the top of the Col du Tourmalet. It stands at 2,115 metres above sea level. This short stage, it has delivered the biggest punch, and now it's Barguil going at the back, and Fuglsang.
Jakob Fuglsang paying the price for the crash on stage 1. Now the move is coming from Landa. Bennett was called off the front by Kruijswijk, or was he? No, Kruijswijk sending Bennett to the front once again.
He doesn't want the pace to drop. There were riders coming around. Once they got to the front, they were backing it off. That's the tactic. Get around and try and slow it down so I don't get dropped. Fuglsang, no good looking over the shoulder. The answer's not there. And Uran.
Rigoberto Uran in pink. The Colombian continues to fight. The pace, does it back off ever so slightly and give him a chance? Clear the road, the Colombians are shouting.
Nobody wants to sit in a single file line and give away metres. The crowd, they need to back off. And from 11, there's now 8.
Bernal is still here, so the Colombians still have hope on Independence Day. Bennett, Kruijswijk, Landa, Bookman, isn't he riding well? The yellow jersey, Julian Alaphilippe, is the story of 2019.
The crowd is in a frenzy. There's a Frenchman in yellow, and he's holding strong with the best GC riders in the world. Bookman goes to the front.
Bernal responds. Then it's Thibaut Pinot. Egan Bernal responding as Geraint Thomas's teammate is suffering. Bennett takes up the chase.
The German climber from Bora Hansgrohe, Geraint Thomas. There's a gap. Thomas is being dropped.
We await the arrival of the defending champion. First in before him, though, will be Rigoberto Urán, as Thomas has almost collapsed. Urán at 30 seconds. Thomas, he could be caught by Barguil, not quite. 36 seconds. 36 seconds, the deficit for the defending champion. Celebration, an emotional day for Thibaut Pinot.
They put some cards on the table early, FDJ. They joined the chase early on the stage, believing in Thibaut Pinot. But Julian Alaphilippe, and after yesterday, surely the French journalists are out of superlatives. They're going to have to make up words for this one. Pinot and Alaphilippe 1-2 on the Tourmalet, not only defending yellow, but opening the gap.
We know what's going to be on the front and the back pages of all the papers in France tomorrow. It will be French success, the stage, and yellow. 1985 was a long, long time ago. Now we have Frenchmen at the top.
Renaissance.
We say so. Led by Alaphilippe, followed by Thibaut Pinot. Oh, the extraordinary results for Thibaut Pinot, winning stages at the Tour de France. He's won at the top of Alpe d'Huez, as he referred to, also here now at the Col de Tourmalet. It was a dramatic day, surrounded by the best climbers in the world on one of the most iconic climbs. And as he said at the end, this tour is not over. There is a long way to go. He's made up a little bit of time overall. He started at 3 minutes and 22 seconds behind Julian Alaphilippe, but he's also gained time on the likes of Geraint Thomas, and his confidence will be building. Thibaut Pinot knows he can go the distance. Arguably the best victory of his career because of the challenges that he's had over the last couple of seasons to come back from those, and he's won with the pressure of expectation, and he concedes he doesn't enjoy that.
So I'll go with, not arguably, just the best victory of his career. That was incredible.
He's had some big ones.
Look at the fight here behind. The fight against themselves as much as each other.
A celebration for Pinot. 6 seconds the gap. Manuel is still very much a factor for that team, and he's the best placed overall for them in second position in the general classification. But once again, it was Thibaut Pinot who won. They can be really happy. You think he can hold on to the jersey tomorrow? I tend to agree. Then there's the rest day, then a flat stage to Nîmes, then a long day to Gap, and then 3 days in the Alps, and his buffer is 2 minutes and 2 seconds. Unsung hero of the day, David Gaudu, for the work that he did for Thibaut Pinot, and Emmanuel Buchmann. Emmanuel Buchmann, his ride to finish 4th on the stage and move himself in a 5th position overall. We celebrated the performance of David Gaudu throughout the stage, but not enough about the ride by Emmanuel Buchmann. Unsung heroes.
Yes, we did sing the praises of Gaudu quite a lot, and it was a very good ride. But I lean towards Buchmann.
So you're going with Buchmann.
The honour. Yep.
Review of the photo, you're going with Emmanuel Buchmann for the unsung hero.
Yep. Photo finish, and he got it by 4 centimetres.
Bike IQ move of the day as we look at the Église of Saint-Louis. And this one goes right back to the 12th century and was made of granite when the first stones were laid. It's been listed as a historical monument since 1910. Nice views overlooking the valley. Bike IQ move of the day, Vincenzo Nibali was in the breakaway. As soon as it was clear that that breakaway was doomed, he sat up and rode really conservatively. And further evidence of that smart move by Vincenzo Nibali. He's in a potential stage-winning break today.
No surprise, Vincenzo Nibali, he is one of, if not the smartest bike rider in the peloton.
Some speeds on the descent. The top speed of Michael Matthews, 85.1 kilometres per hour. He took some risks to close down that gap.
That was chasing that front group. So Matthews and the small group he was in, they needed to take the risk off the top through the KOM, in the fog, through the cloud, and to close that gap.
So you agree with the IQ move by Nibali from yesterday?
100%.
Excellent. So George Bent at the top of the media medal. This is Rigoberto Urán, 7th overall at 4 minutes and 24 seconds behind. He is still really dangerous in this race, Rigoberto Urán. A sense of calm has returned to the back of the peloton. This breakaway group, they're underneath the kite, 1 kilometre to go to the intermediate sprint. And
Matthews tracking everything. For a man who said, I've given up on green, well, he's been tracking everything. He goes again.
This is Caruso. And Matthews wants a piece of the action. Matthews is currently 4th in this classification. If he wins here, he moves up to 3rd place ahead of Elia Viviani. But he's looking across the shoulder and he's spending a lot of energy. Niels Pollitt is the rider that is behind him.
Then there's a gap behind that. So Matthews will be hoping that he'll get an easier ride through to the line, that Pollitt won't go and challenge him. Pollitt's managed to ride the slipstream of Matthews across this gap. 3 of them off the front. I'm surprised to see such a battle for it by riders who don't have any points in the green jersey competition as yet.
Matthews now stays in the slipstream. Niels Pollitt is getting the jump on him. Wrong shoulder for Michael Matthews, but he's got the speed to get the better of Niels Pollitt, and he collects 20 points.
He worked hard for that one, Michael Matthews. And this is where and why I'm disappointed that Michael Matthews gave up the fight for green. We've seen them in the past. It's been often Chris Froome will choose one stage where he gives it absolutely everything, opens up a big gap on the rest, also will give them a good clip over their ear in the time trial. But in the other stages, it's a lot more controlled, only accelerating in the final few hundred metres quite often to take a few seconds here and there, but just to defend the lead ride fairly conservatively. Now they're behind in the stages, ticking away one by one. They are going to have to come up with a different style of racing if they're going to unseat Julian Alaphilippe. And at the moment, although there was all this early aggression, it's looking good for Julian Alaphilippe. He has not been isolated. Credit to his team for staying in the group for some of them, chasing back on for others, and they're doing the job.
This lead group now has split through that intermediate sprint. This is Marc Soler now at the front. He's followed by Bilbao from Astana. It's a handy little sprint. That is Julien Bernard just behind him from Trek Segafredo.
2 Movistar riders in the group. Amador was the man at the back of the group. Nairo Quintana, he is back in the main group of that breakaway. Nibali. As we take a nice flyover in Tarascon-sur-Ariège.
Pretty little town. We just went over the Tower of Castella just a moment ago. The Church of Notre Dame de Sebar is the church that we just had a brief look at. They're doing a very good job, the Deceuninck Quick-Step team, containing that breakaway. It's hasn't been much more than 2 minutes and 30 seconds their advantage. This is at the back of the breakaway group as they come into the feed zone. And this is the little split that has gone off the front from that group. And Julien Bernard from Trek Segafredo is pretty keen to press on. Through the feed is a good opportunity because there'll be a few riders taking it slightly easier back in that bigger portion of the breakaway. And they've already gained 250 metres.
Well, you've got to pay attention everywhere, and the smartest riders, they track the move through the intermediate sprint, road in the wheels, no sprints, but just follow the speed as much as possible and then go on with it. Pello Bilbao, he's also made it in here.
Matthews in the red colours, Bilbao just behind him. Pollard is there for Katusha. Caruso is also that. Galopin, the two riders from Movistar at the back. Amador is the number 63. With him is Marc Soler. The rider that has worked his way up into third position overall is a Dutchman, Steven Kruijswijk from from Jumbo-Visma. And we caught up with Steven Kruijswijk before today's stage got started. Here he is now.
Yeah, I think we surprised a lot of people that we were still there with three of us in the final, and yeah, that's the way we wanted it. And the guys did a great job pulling towards the end for me. And yeah, unfortunately, I could not finish for the stage win, but I think we did a good stage for the GC.
Yeah, you're right up there, the GC, and a possibility to actually win the Tour de France.
We see Antonel Alaphilippe is really strong, and I don't see him crack that easily, and we have to keep fighting. It's a long way to go, and yeah, we have to take it day by day.
He hasn't done any of the pacemaking in that breakaway, Dan Martin. He's the only rider from UAE Emirates in that move. In some respects, that can be a slight advantage. All the other teams have got multiple riders in this breakaway, but Dan Martin is there on his own. So too is Simon Yates, actually. But they can look to other teams to do any of the chasing if there is a split in that group, and wait until it's crunch time before they really need to put themselves at the front.
Well, you know, Matt, the good thing about this course and about the profile, you saw it there on the bottom right of screen, is that the climbs are all fairly close to each other. So it's either up or it's down. There's not much valley road at all. Just a little section towards the foot of the final climb of the Prat d'Albi. I think no more than a 8-kilometre section that could require any chasing if there's a split.
Niels Pollard out in front. Reaction coming pretty quickly from the man in the yellow helmet, that is Marc Soler. The group is really disorganised, even though they're out to 3:37.
So Pollard just trying to keep things going on behalf of Ilnur Zakarin, get the biggest gap possible. That's really all that Pollard can do from now on, is just try and open up the gap. He can't be of assistance on these Category 1 climbs to his teammates. So this is the best thing he can do, is keep the pace on. He's drawing reactions from behind. Nico Roach says, well, I better go across to that one just in case.
Also, Simon Geschke from CCC making sure that he stays on the wheel. Is a powerhouse on the flat, Niels Pollard.
So even though nobody's in his wheel, it's encouraging the others to swap off behind him, not let somebody go, just keeps the momentum going in the group. And you see all the reactions coming now. More and more riders have gone across to that second group, and a little bit of panic starts to set in, then someone jumps.
And the primary reason Niels Pollard is doing this is because his teammate Ilnur Zakarin is in that breakaway. He's a great climber, Ilnur Zakarin. He's been third in the Volta a España, stage winner this year in the Giro d'Italia. Simon Yates is chasing.
But Zakarin is not in this second group, so Pollard is also looking back to see where he is. Here he is in that third group towards the front of it, just behind Vincenzo Nibali. So Pollard has caused this split by reactions behind him, and his teammate he's trying to ride for at the moment is in the last group of the four, but it's all starting to close back up again. And that is what awaits the riders up the valley. They are approaching the foot of the first Category 1 climb of the day. That was a couple of years ago into Foix, we will ride through today. And instead of the finish line being down in the town itself, it is high above on the Prat d'Albi, a Category 1 climb. And back then, just great to see that footage again of Warren Barguil and his entry into that final corner. Just carrying way more corner speed, a much faster line. Already standing up and on the pedals while the others were still trying to corner further to the inside. Perfect execution. By the time they knew what was going on, he was gone and the stage win was in. He would go on to win on the Col d'Izoard and sew up the polka dot jersey of 2017 as well. And this year, after a very lean and inconspicuous 2018, Warren Barguil is back on the attack yesterday on the Tourmalet. And backing up a great effort by their whole team, in fact, of Arkea Samsic. Elie Gilbert was off the front earlier on. When he was caught, it was Barguil who went on the attack. And no, it wasn't a stage-winning move, but it was a good attempt and will be a real confidence booster for the Frenchman. Really signalling his return this season with his win in the French Championship. Back up to the break. And it looks like we still have a split. There is still a large group in front.
And just again on Warren Barguil, I wonder how he feels about all the rumours of the arrival at his team of Nairo Quintana. There's 15 riders out in front, leaving 21 to do the chasing. Team's classification currently being led by Movistar, 11 minutes and 5 seconds ahead of Trek Segafredo. This is Vincenzo Nibali, number 41. The climb is about to start.
So any of those riders in that second group, the good climbers who have missed out on their split, they do have the chance early on the early slopes of this climb to get themselves back across, but give themselves a lot of work to do. With the likes up here of Pello Bilbao, Nicola Roche, Reichenbach. This is the second group, just with Dan Martin at the front, Ilnur Zakarin. We saw it was his teammate pushing the pace on for Ilnur Zakarin to try and open up the gap. It's caused a split, and he's missed it.
11.4 kilometres worth of climbing. This is at the back of the group, number 63. That is Andre Amador. 136 is the bobbing, ducking and weaving Bauke Mollema. 41, Vincenzo Nibali. 156, that is Pierre-Luc Perichon from Cofidis. Peloton still being led by De Koenig Quick-Step. And Mollema, third in the Volta a España in 2011. He is now being dropped. And he started the day 15th overall at just 9 minutes and 3 seconds down. He's got Ilnur Zakarin with him. That's disappointing for Katusha Alpecin. That's the rider that Niels Pollitt was working for. Another rider from Fatigue from the Giro d'Italia, where he finished in 10th place.
Well, at the moment, Zakarin is about the same distance behind the front group that he was at the foot, but other riders are moving away and going across. This is Tim Wellens. Well, he's done what he could today. He did a good job yesterday, collecting maximum points on the Category 1 climb. He'll live to fight another day, and he'll be keeping his fingers crossed about who gets the major points on the 3 climbs today.
Base of the climb, the sprinter who is at the front for De Koenig Quick-Step. The team is fully committed to the yellow jersey of Julian Alaphilippe. Yesterday he said he thought it would be hard. At the end, he said it was even harder. This is Simon Yates. Stage winner into Bagnier de Bigorre. He's followed by Sebastian Reichenbach. Next in line is Rudy Mollard, 2 riders from Groupama FDJ. The red, Nico Roche. This is Lutsenko in white.
The gap has something wrong with him. Elia Viviani, their sprinter, is still here and looking really comfortable. We're a pure climber, a man who's 2nd overall in the Tour of Spain last year, is out the back. To be illness.
Has to be. Even on a bad day, he would outclimb Viviani.
So that means when the pressure goes on, you would expect most of the riders from De Koenig Quick-Step to be dropped, bar Alaphilippe and Dries Devenants.
It means there's going to be some lonely kilometres for Julian Alaphilippe defending the yellow jersey. Andre Amador followed by Romain Bardet. I do like the character of Romain Bardet. After such a difficult day 24 hours ago, he bounces back immediately and shows himself once again at the front of the Tour. Remnants of the breakaway group. Roman Kreuziger is leading. Guy Martin is the yellow helmet that you can see off in the distance. In addition to being a philosopher, he's also a playwright. He's written a stage show which is being performed at the moment in the Avignon Festival, and his mum is the producer of that show. It's Platon versus Platoche, and it's based on the writings of Plato, Aristotle and Socrates. But he has said, first and foremost, I'm a professional cyclist. I don't want to be typecast as this character of the cyclist philosopher. He's a lot more than just a bike rider, isn't he? With the masters in philosophy, and he's a playwright as well. He's got a bit going on, Guy Martin.
Well, he's got a bit going on trying to cross the group in front of him, and they in turn are chasing the front of the race, which is really starting to heat up into single file. Geschke still here, number 114. Nairo Quintana, the best on GC in this group, starting the day 7 minutes and 19 seconds behind the lead of Alaphilippe. Another big acceleration here, and that is Caruso.
He's following
the wheel of Bernard.
Yeah, he's following Julien Bernard. The pink colours, Michael Woods. Number 72, that is Bilbao.
This is a chasing group, not the front group.
Correct. Yeah, this is the second group there, and they're at 26 seconds behind the front of the race. There's Guy Martin just in front of them.
That was the group with Dan Martin in front of him, and they are still behind the lead of the race with Simon Yates. He's already on the march and looking for stage win, number 2.
This is Ciccone. He's had a great tour. Second on the stage, La Planche de Belleville. A couple of days in the yellow jersey. He catches on to the group being led by Simon Yates. This is Dan Martin, followed by Bardet. Kreuziger in third position. In fact, that is not Romain Bardet. That is Tony Galopin that sits behind Dan Martin.
There he is, number 35, Tony Galopin. A very difficult start to this Tour de France. Came in under an injury cloud after a crash in the French Championship. Started the Tour all bandaged up on his left-hand side. A few days later, he had another crash. After that, since then, things have been looking up. He's got himself into a couple of breakaways, and he looks to be getting better as this Tour goes on, as Nairo Quintana is now having trouble following the wheel.
And he's not looking to be getting better. His teammate Marc Soler dropped back for him yesterday on the Col de Tourmalet. Soler is not waiting today. He's in this group trying to go across to the front and join that contingent of riders with Simon Yates.
You saw Quintana just reach for the radio communication. Soler taking a look back to see where he is. So obviously the word from Nairo was just easy for a second, easy. No way. Soler is trying to power across that gap. You can't wait for Quintana in this situation now.
If he waits for Quintana, they both miss the move.
If he's blowing this early on a Cat 1 climb where the action's only just starting after what happened with him yesterday, Soler's got to push on and see if he can go for a stage win.
Woods is trying to push on. He has got Omar Fraulet with him from Astana and Guillaume Martin from Monte Group Goubert. Roman Kreuziger out of the saddle for Dimension Data. They're about to make contact with the group. At the rear of that group is Simon Yates. Roach is there in red, so too is Leonard Kamner. Again, the young German. He's been very good this week. Didn't see much of him in the first week, but in the second week, he's been one of the standouts.
Andre Amador, the man who did most of the riding on the front for Movistar yesterday. And at the moment, he's the best of his team out of this breakaway.
This is Lutsenko, the Kazakhstan national champion.
He made a lot of attempts to get into the break today. It took him about 5 or 6 goes to eventually join this move that was able to get away.
Galopin, number 35. He has made contact. The body language of Dan Martin looks to be paying the price for the effort to close that gap.
Simon Yates, he made that acceleration. He split the group. He made everybody make a big effort to... Seems like he's just been sliding his way to the back, seeing who's here, catching his breath a little bit, but staying in contact with the back of the group. So a little bit of recovery, and I expect him back at the front of the group again. And he's not done with attacking just yet.
The stunning Pyrenees, the final battle for this year's tour, that will be held in the Alps, including the stage from Albertville to Val Thorens. And today they have 16,000 people participating in L'Etape du Tour. You can also do L'Etape du Tour in many countries around the world, including in Australia, where Esteban Chavez and Amanda Spratt will be riding this year. But amongst those participating in L'Etape today in France, Frank Schleck, former stage winner at the Tour de France and a third-place finisher overall in 2011.
The high summer pastures here in the Pyrenees. Relaxed atmosphere if you're just out in the fields, but the pressure coming on both up the front of the race in the breakaway and just starting to build back here in the peloton as well at the moment. De Koning Quick-Step with Casper Asgreen setting the pace. Yves Lampart's still there as well, but the gap opening more and more to the front of the race. But they will also be hearing that Nairo Quintana is in trouble and being dropped out of the group in front. So that will help them to relax somewhat back in the peloton. Looming behind, Team Ineos, Jumbo Visma with Steven Kruijswijk. George Bennett there, just behind him as well. Soler, Lutsenko, Kreuziger, Guillaume Martin.
And all of a sudden, Nairo Quintana is within 2 minutes of the yellow jersey. He's now threatening the position of Geraint Thomas in second place overall.
Michael Woods moving himself up towards the front, so expect him to be going for the King of the Mountain points as well. He showed his hand over the last climb where he got the better of Vincenzo Nibali. This is Pierre-Luc Perichon. He was dropped out of the break and now drifting his way back to the peloton, who, talking of drifting, have now drifted out to 5 minutes and 18 behind the lead.
So in the virtual general classification, Nairo Quintana is in second position.
De Koning quick drawn into using too much energy and too many resources, especially at the moment since they're missing Enric Mas. Maybe hoping he can ride his way back on, but I think it looks worse than that. But definitely giving Julien Alaphilippe a fairly easy ride. All the other teams prepared to sit back and just let De Koning Quick Step do the work. They look at that virtual general classification. Quintana now up to second at 1:57, moved ahead of Thomas Kruijswijk and Bernal. This is what we're talking about. Who does what and when?
Romain Bardet sitting just behind Nairo Quintana. Two riders we often speak about in these sorts of positions in the high mountains in terms of racing at the front, but not from a breakaway that's been given more than 5 minutes. Both of them had tough days yesterday, and they're really fighting back with both legs today. 65 Ks remaining, and it is still the 22-year-old Kasper Asgreen with the jersey unzipped at the front. This is Luke Durbridge at the back of the race from Mitchelton Scott. At the back of the main peloton, though, there's still a lot of riders further back behind Durbridge.
Absolutely. But Durbridge, he's in a safe position for getting inside the time cut and live to fight another day. And at the moment, just riding his way into the rest day. This is his teammate, Matteo Trentin.
No doubt they will get together and ride the remainder of the stage in unison, along with a few others that are slowly getting dropped off the back of the group. Steve Cummings still here at the back. These are the best legs we've seen on Steve Cummings throughout the tour for Dimension Data. Good news for Cummings is the green helmet in this breakaway is his teammate, Roman Kreuziger.
And now, reminiscent of yesterday, Movistar on the front, but this time in the breakaway, and with a man who at the moment is making a march towards going virtual race leader in the Tour de France, Nairo Quintana.
Tactically yesterday, Movistar, they executed a plan that their legs couldn't live up to. Today, they've turned it around really quickly. This is strategically even better, and physically, they're performing at the next level.
I would say they carried out a plan that executed their team leader yesterday.
That it did.
But today he's
Bardet
back.
for points. Bardet for points. Simon Geschke wants a piece of the action. But Romain Bardet now, he wants a spot on the podium in Paris as the winner of the King of the Mountains classification.
Woods wanted to get through and was blocked. He's missed out on some points, just squeaking through this time. He was intent on having them and just couldn't get out from where he was, Michael Woods. Romain Bardet, his intentions are clear. This is Richie Porte. He's been off the back of the main group, but this looks like it rather might have been a nature break or a mechanical. Rather than anything else.
Richie doesn't look particularly stressed and is riding quite well back through that convoy of cars. Richie looks okay. It was a disappointing day yesterday. This is one that he appears to have under control. The rider's from Soudal Lotto. He's reaching into the back pocket. He might have gone back to the team car to collect some food. Tish Benoot towards the back with him from Soudal Lotto. He's the rider in second last position. There's still a little over a kilometre before they reach the top of the climb. This is Vincenzo Nibali.
He's just going backwards towards the peloton, and there they are. So the man who was so aggressive early on and all day yesterday was paying the price for those efforts. Won't be the last we've seen of him in this Tour de France. I think he'll keep trying. but it just seems that he's running on fumes.
He really does need the rest day. Then to Nîmes after that, followed by stage to Gap, where perhaps we'll see a bit more of Vincenzo Nibali up towards the front. Nibali now caught. Asgreen still setting the tempo at the front. Alejandro Valverde, the world champion, the rainbow jersey with the yellow helmet on. It's looking pretty good. The 39-year-old is in 9th position overall at 5 minutes and 27 seconds down. Pau Bilbao is in the breakaway for the Astana team. He's one of the riders we caught up with before the start of the stage. We're not too far away from his home region in the Basque Country, just across the border. Here is Paulo Bilbao speaking this morning. Bilbao has already been proven to be correct. A few riders will have a difficult day today. Chiefly amongst them, the earlier victims, Enric Mas, the young Spaniard from Deceuninck Quick-Step. He's already been distanced by the main peloton. This is Bauke Mollema from Trek Segafredo, just in front of Michael Matthews. He said, I wanted to hurt the others.
Well, he did. He absolutely did, and that's what you've got to want to do. You've got to go into it like it is a fight. That was a great ride as well. The peloton and the break both can now enjoy around 16 kilometres of descending down off this Category 1 climb, and the next one that comes up, it's a double up in a way. It goes from one straight onto the other. The lower slope is called the Col de Caunu, but the main Category 1 climb that's next, the Mur de Péguerre, 9.3 kilometres at an average of 8%. It's shorter than the last one, but steeper. And Mur says it all. French for wall.
And look at the numbers in the last few kilometres. It goes from gentle at the bottom, from blue into red, a little bit of respite in the middle, and then at the top, gradients of 18%.
So that first part, the Col de Caunu, after they get past that section, after 6 kilometres of climbing, it's the next 3.5, which is the actual Mur de Péguerre. That 3 kilometre section is all, well, I'd say the average is 12.5%. But with those steep sections, like you said, it'll be through the corners, 18, 19%.
Niels Pollitt now being caught by the main peloton.
I think it'll serve to break up the front group. The peloton, however, is still a big question mark, isn't it? Who is going to do the chasing? Who's going to get nervous about Quintana having a 5-minute lead at this point in the race when they still have a long descent off the top of the next climb all the way to the foot of the Prat d'Albi? Because when they crest the Mur de Péguerre after 147 kilometres of racing, they have 28 kilometres to the foot of the final climb.
Yeah, and it continues. It's the cycling standoff between Deceuninck Quick-Step and the rivals of Julian Alaphilippe. Ineos, they continue to wait patiently. Yesterday we expected a little more, well I certainly did, of Geraint Thomas, but he is hoping that that's his one bad day behind him and he wants to get himself back into contention. I don't think today is a day where Geraint Thomas can take time back on Julian Alaphilippe. And it's just funny that that's the shift in the language, not about can Alaphilippe defend, but can the others take time on him. Based on what we've heard about the final climb today, it doesn't sound like it's the one that really suits Geraint Thomas. So if he is good on the climb today, then he's back and he will be a contender once we hit the Alps. This is still a race of great intrigue. This is the deepest we've been in the dark as to who's going to win the race for the last perhaps 10 years or so. Maybe even more. Great edition of the tour. Deceuninck Quick-Step taking a few more risks on the descent. They've closed it back down now. It's just a little over 5 minutes.
Well, looking at that final climb, it's not as brutal as the climb yesterday up to the Tourmalet. It's not as long, it's not as steep, it's not at the same altitudes. The altitude at the top of the final climb, 1,205 metres. It's an 11.8 kilometre climb as opposed to 9.7%, but the steeper sections are... And just the last kilometre is only at an average of 3%. A little flat piece through to the line. It's going to be easier for the favourites to all stay together on the final climb today. I don't see a lot of changes happening amongst...
But I didn't anticipate Enric previous climb either.
That is also true, and what Pello Bilbao is, we have got a problem.
This is Woods. He's trying to get something out of his front wheel, which is always extremely dangerous. He's putting his weight to his back seat, and it's really rattling the bike at this point. He's always a nervous rider to watch on descents.
He is. It looked precarious from Woods. And I'm not sure if it was possibly a gear problem or he wanted a bit more adjustment in the brakes. Sometimes you see the riders on the uphill, they'll flick a quick release, totally release the brakes out, so any flex in the wheel won't touch the brake pads. As much a psychological thing as anything else. Sometimes you'll hear just the very faintest touch when out of the saddle, and on these climbing bikes, so light, really, the lightest wheels, things flex a little bit, sometimes just brush ever so slightly. But he was looking like he was trying to adjust something there, still looking down.
He's still really concerned about it. Former 3,000 metre record holder as a runner in Canada. He's done a sub 4 minute mile. He's managed to run 3:56 or 54. I can't quite remember what it is, but he was the record holder, at least at the time, in Canada. He did an interview with Inside Business early in the Tour de France on around about stage 2 or 3. And he said, riding a race like the Tour de France, it makes you a better bike rider, but a worse person. Tempers get frayed. You don't do a whole lot other than ride your bike, quite obviously. And you live in a bubble. You're oblivious to everything else that is happening around the world. He doesn't look at ease at all on the bike at the moment here, Michael Woods. The Movistar team, though, they are taking command of this breakaway. This is Marc Soler at the front, followed then by Andre Amador. In third position is Nairo Quintana, who's worked his way back up towards second place in the overall standings. Simon Yates is behind him. Romain Bardet is in this group. Let's take a look at the climb. And this is what we spoke about. It starts okay. It then eventually goes to black.
Yep, that blue colour, they are the lower gradients. There you have it, 6.5%. Then it goes into the red, an easier section in green, so a chance to ease off, catch your breath in that red zone, and turns to black track, 13, 18, 16%, and a long section. That black continues to the top of the wall of Péguerre.
It doesn't fade to black, it rises to black. It is a brutal climb right at the end. That's where it's at its toughest. The good news for a lot of the riders in the race today is the altitude's not super high. 1,300 metres by comparison to the more than 2,000 yesterday. Oxygen density shouldn't be too much of a problem. The yellow jersey so far, Julian Alaphilippe, just simply looks like he's enjoying himself. He still has 3 teammates with him. Dries Devenant is there, so too is Casper Asgreen. Just want to get a little bit closer to confirm the other one. We would have anticipated Enric Mas, but he got dropped earlier on.
Up the front, the attention turns to nutrition, hydration, recovery, because the next climb is really tough.
They're just a couple of kilometres away from hitting the base of that climb. This is the philosopher and the playwright, Guillaume Martin, number 191.
We talk often about eating and drinking. It's important. Do it often. Do it when you can. There are very few opportunities now on this stage. You're either going up a Category 1 climb or down a tricky descent like this one, uneven, off camber, through the shadows, blind corners. Pretty difficult to reach into your pocket.
So there's physical stress on the way up, psychological stress on the way down. This is the experienced Nico Roach coming to the front. The hand signal out, letting everybody know, left-hand turn about to come.
You've got to leave your manners out of it. It's hand in back pocket, grab something, stuff it in your mouth, and chew with cheeks like a chipmunk to just get it in while you can. Because don't forget, this is a 187-kilometre stage. It's been incredibly fast from the get-go. So it's not like you can just roll along and keep fueling up at your ease.
So the leading group with Romain Bardet, they went over the Port de l'Aise at 21 kilometres per hour. The Deceuninck Quickstep-led peloton with Julian Alaphilippe, 19.7. Is that a little bit of rain on the lens? It is.
Well, it did rain in this area last night, and we said it was very humid and can always blow in.
It's not a little bit of rain, that's a lot of rain now where the peloton is. This makes it dangerous, and you get the sense that perhaps Julian Alaphilippe, he would like the rain. He doesn't mind dangerous on the way down. He could put some of his rivals under pressure whilst descending.
He definitely can. Not sure he would like to do that right at this moment, but it's certainly not going to bother him or hinder his chances. And then very quickly, they're out from under that rain shower.
The average speed, thanks to the descent, has gone back up to almost 42 kilometres per hour.
So just a very short section. And
that is Viviani.
Microclimates here in the Pyrenees. Viviani, what a job he is doing today for the team, the sprinter.
Elia Viviani left Team Sky / Ineos because he didn't want to be on a team of somebody racing to try and win the Tour de France overall. He wanted to be able to come to the race to try and win some stages. Well, he's won a stage. Now he is supporting the defence of yellow. Remnants of the breakaway group. That is Anthony Perez of the Cofidis team about to be caught. It's tension on the brakes in the wet.
You've always just got to hold your breath a little bit when the peloton is descending and it just starts to rain. When it hasn't rained here for a while, it rained a little bit overnight in Toulouse where we were. Signs of a little bit of rain on the way down here, but when we arrived in Foix, it was completely dry. This could be the first time it's rained in a couple of weeks. Then the roads can just get that little bit of greasiness. So although Julian Alaphilippe is a very good descender, as are the men in front of him, he's got to be a little bit cautious, but it looks now like they are back onto dry road. So a really isolated shower through that section.
And it's humid here in Foix at the base of the final climb.
I'm looking outside. The sun is almost breaking through as we look out our back window. They're back into the sun. See the riders' shadows on the roads. So they're back into those nice conditions, but very, very hot. And with that rain that we just had, you can imagine how humid it is out there as well.
The climb now starts of the Mur de Péguerre. This is a 9.3 kilometre climb. The steepest pinches, they come right at the very top with gradients up to 18%. 10 minutes back to the green jersey group. This is Roach. Once you crack on this climb, it comes to a grinding halt really, really quick.
I don't think he needs to signal to say, pass me on that side. You can just come past.
It was pretty obvious. De Plus still at the front, followed by Kruijswijk. Yates now attacks. It's climbers in the mist as they head through the Pyrenees.
Well, Yates, he already showed a sign on the climb before. He was the man that made the first acceleration that really split the group up. He's got Geschke off the front. He says now it's time to go across and join him. Whittle it down to a smaller group that I can deal with. And with just 3 minutes lead, still a long way to go. Descent, long valley road. He knows he needs to get on with it now.
There is a decent valley road between the top of this climb and into Foix. It's predominantly downhill though, but
it's 26 kilometres.
It's a long way. Yeah, I'm looking for positives for the breakaway, trying to give them a chance, and they are a chance, particularly riders of the calibre of Simon Geschke and Simon Yates, who is trying to come across on his own.
26 kilometres from the top of this climb to the foot of the last one. Most of it nice, fairly steep descending, but there is a 11-kilometre section where you could really use that team time trial effect working together.
They're clearing out the vehicles.
Well, where are they going to put the red one?
Between Geschke and the chase behind.
They're already driving 2 wheels onto the grass, getting ready for Yates to pass them and get onto the wheel of Geschke.
Kemner at the back. In front of him with the yellow helmet is Martin. The pink colours of Michael Woods. Kreuziger, Galopin. That's Dan Martin. We bridge across the easy way. Nairo Quintana is here. Raikkonen back in the red. Bardet and Martin. The climbing cream is rising to the top.
Well, Well, the attack of Simon Yates, it has splintered that group completely. He has now halved the gap that was there between himself and Simon Geschke. Geschke, he's able to go through the corner, look back, a smile from one of his former soigneurs when it was Team Sunweb. They know each other well, and he'll be hoping that his former colleague in the same team can put in a good result, and then he turns his attention to looking for Cumner.
When he changed teams, as that Sunweb team under various sponsors, is the only other team he's ever ridden for, and he was with them for 12 seasons. Still De Plus at the front for Jumbo-Visma. Fabio Aru fighting to hold on at the back. Richie Porte is looking better today. This is Omar Fraile from the break, now being caught by Mikel Landa, who was launched out of the peloton. Incidentally, Landa started the day 11th, 6:14 behind.
Landa past Fraile. Fraile will be surprised if he can hang on all the way up.
The main time losses for Mikel Landa came on stage 10 in the crosswind when he was involved in a crash. He was in the front group.
And yesterday he was very good. We thought it was for Quintana, but Landa was their best finisher.
6th position on the stage yesterday for Landa. Bardet now responding. Oh, this is a show of character, not just physical strength, but a show of character from Bardet.
And when they get over the top of this climb, I would expect Romain Bardet, with his descending skills, to ride his way back on. As Geschke, he takes the major points across the top of the Mur de Péguerre, quickly followed by Simon Yates. He rides himself into the wheel, and then it's that small chasing group led by Bardet.
Bardet, he collects more points for the polka dots, but it's the stage that he is primarily focused on, surely. Lutsenko is the next, then Reichenbach, then it is Nairo Quintana. We always thought we'd be talking about Bardet, Martin, and also Quintana, but it's in a different situation. Soler, the ultimate workhorse, he's now been caught by Landa, and it's full throttle.
Important moment. Would be even better for Landa if he caught Soler closer to the top. And it may just be the case that Soler has done all that he can, unless he's just sat, rested, freshened up to make sure he can get all through this final kilometre with Mikel Landa, and then two together can really make an impression off the descent and down the valley road.
And I think Soler can do that. I think they'll be together over the top, because he will need, Mikel Landa that is, he will need Marc Soler on the other side of this climb.
We saw Movistar do this often last year in the Tour de France. Riders up in the break, then wait, someone attack out of the group of the favourites, come across, get together and work. Soler did it with Valverde last year on the road to La Rosière. It didn't work out in the end, but they kept trying the right tactic.
This is
One
the
day
attack.
it's going to work out.
This is the attack of Mikel Landa.
Look on these steep slopes, up to 18%. Full effort, 13, 14 kilometres an hour. That's on a flat stage that would carry you up to around 60 kilometres an hour.
Tells the story of the gradients, because when you talk about percentages, it never does it justice. But when you see a guy the calibre of Mikel Landa attacking all the way up to 16 kilometres per hour, you know it is frightfully steep. Fraile now on the radio. An update perhaps for Lutsenko as to what's happening in the remnants of the peloton. It's not the peloton anymore. This is simply the yellow jersey group. It's being led by Laurens De Plus of Jumbo-Visma. Soler and Landa over the top together at 2:14, but their advantage is just over 20 seconds on the yellow jersey group of Alaphilippe.
And Alaphilippe still riding at the front of the group on the wheel of Steven Kruijswijk.
And it is pouring with rain at the finish line, we've just been told.
Well, it could be that same weather system that we saw just earlier on the last descent that hit the riders. It's moving across the finish line at the moment. But here where the riders find themselves is up high in the mist as George Bennett. He's managed to hang on the back of this group. That will be very handy for Steven Kruijswijk to have the Kiwi still in the group.
Looked like he was suffering. To be at the back of the group, it looked like Bennett was suffering. He likes to be at the front. He likes being Steven Kruijswijk's bodyguard in the mountains.
Well, he gets a chance now to get his breath back, get some lactic acid out of the legs. He's going to have to take some risks on this downhill. It will be very fast. And I even wonder if this is possibly a place where Julien Alaphilippe may just take matters into his own hands for a while. It's not like he's doing a pedalling turn on the front, but if he just lets it flow through the corners, Well, he is likely to catch a few off guard.
Bardet showing his frustration.
Irritated. Narrow Quintana.
No, I'm not sure it was
Maybe.
Quintana. I think it was for Reichenbach in the red colours from Group Armour FDJ. He's just sitting on the back.
It is. Quintana still prepared to work. I was wondering if maybe Quintana was hearing Landa is coming. Wouldn't it be better if we all came together, even though it's still a 2-minute 37 gap?
I think it's too big, that gap, for Quintana to wait. But
In fact, it's
Reichenbach,
only 2:08, not 2.5. 2 minutes is too much for him to wait. It's Reichenbach, the man who's sitting on.
the conversation is still happening. Bardet is having some stern words with Reichenbach, but Robbie,
Team orders.
he's within his rights to do that. He's riding for a man that is back in the yellow jersey group who won yesterday's stage, Thibaut Pinot.
And will be under instruction, do not ride with Narrow Quintana, because he is now ahead of Thibaut Pinot, or at the moment 2.5 minutes. Which way has it swung?
And Narrow Quintana, and one way to stay out of trouble, go to the front.
So he says, I'm not going to ride in your wheel. I'm happy to do it a little bit more on the front.
Amador Soler working for Landa.
Amador is a very good descender.
Indeed.
He's up there with Bardet, Alaphilippe and Peter Sagan. He is really strong downhill, skills-wise.
As a team, Movistar came in for the most criticism yesterday. As a team today, they should be coming in for the most praise. They have ridden this brilliantly.
Well, they're going into these stages with a plan and going into execute it. Yesterday looked to be going just the way they wanted it, but then Narrow Quintana was dropped. Landa, however, had a good finish in 6th on top of the Tourmalet, and now they're putting some real pressure on, but not so much on the yellow jersey, because it's other teams doing the work behind.
Jumbo-Visma doing the chasing. Their team leader, Steven Kruijswijk, he sits in 3rd place overall. He's 2:14 down, which has him at 12 seconds behind the defending champion, Geraint Thomas. And you know who we haven't spoken about much again today? We've mentioned him as an unsung hero, but he's just sitting there quietly, minding his own business. Emmanuel Buchmann, 5th overall at 3:12. Don't worry about me, boys. You go about your business. I'll just try and sneak onto the podium in Paris.
You can't even see me. I'm under the radar, catching some of the remnants of the break now. Amador, Soler, Miguel Landa.
This is Ciccone, 133. Get on the train.
And along with him from Team Cofidis, number 154 is Jesus Herrera. Back to the front of the race. Yates, look over the shoulder, over the top of Simon Geschke. Back onto the pedals, not quite as steep anymore. The speed still very high. Winding their way down off the Mur de Péguerre. Long valley road coming up in front of them as well when they get off the main descent.
It's Bardet and Quintana who are the quickest of this group on the way down.
Bardet will be hoping that he can distance Reichenbach. Then there's no passenger in this group. He says, I'm not allowed to ride here. Quintana's Thibaut Pinot, so I'm going to sit on and not make a contribution. But if you can drag me all the way to the bottom of the final climb and my legs are a bit fresher, just quietly I've got the go-ahead to go for the stage win.
As an indication as to how good a climber Reichenbach is, he was 14th in the Tour de France in 2016, 17th in the Giro d'Italia the year after. You're a very good climber finishing in the top 20 at the Tour de France or the Giro d'Italia. There he is at the back in the red colours.
Bardet drops to the back of this group, has a look behind, tries to assess where the rest of the chasers are. Back up to the front now with Geschke and Yates. The German and the Brit, no threats to general classification.
Look at how quickly they're descending though. The chasers, Bardet, we've spoken about his descending ability. It's out to 43 seconds.
Whenever they've got onto a part of the descent that's not as steep and not as winding, look at the effort they're putting in, how hard they're pedaling. One's pedaling flat out in the front, the other one's aero tuck in the slipstream, gets up on the seat, he goes over the top, where these guys here are not doing as much.
Reichenbach's working now.
He is, but it's not giving absolutely everything. The next turn from Lysenko, he may come over the top and pedal through. It's not with the intensity of the two off the front.
And Landa has moved out to almost 40 seconds, 50 seconds in front of the yellow jersey group.
Well, he's being chased now by George Bennett, who is the man on the front. Bennett, not a noted descender. He's an incredible climber, but he has come under pressure for his descending in the past and chasing really good descenders like Amador, Soler and Landa. It's a tough gig.
And it's out to a 50-second advantage now for Mikel Landa ahead of the yellow jersey group. They've got a bit of breathing space though on Mikel Landa. He's at 6 minutes and 14 seconds down in the overall classification. A lot of that time loss coming on stage 10 when he was knocked off the side of the road accidentally by Warren Barguil. Well, Greg Van Avermaet, the Olympic champion, he's got his teammate in the breakaway, Simon Geschke, from the CCC team. We spoke to Van Avermaet before the stage started to get his thoughts on what might happen. Let's now have a listen to the leader for CCC.
I hope Alaphilippe. I think he has a good chance. He has two mates in front, and he has the yellow jersey and the whole nation behind him and give motivation. And I think the stages in the Alps are short, and this should help him to recover better from the higher climbs.
Do you think you can hang on there and climb with the best, with the Bernals and the Colombians?
Yeah, I think. I hope he can win, and it would be nice.
Well, CCC without a threat to be able to win the race overall, so Greg Van Avermaet just giving his open and honest view, and it is the sentimental view held by a lot of people that Julian Alaphilippe can return the fortunes of the French. It's been a long wait. The last time they won was way back in 1985. He's in a good position. He holds on to a lead of 2 minutes and 2 seconds. So Van Avermaet, Robbie, also hoping that Julian Alaphilippe can win the race overall. And the weather conditions at the base of the climb starting to change.
It is now raining. Yep, it is now raining here at the bottom of the climb. It won't concern the riders so much if it rains down the valley and on the final climb itself. They're more worried about it raining while they're still on this descent. At the moment, it looks dry. Fingers crossed they get to the bottom of the main descent with good conditions. After that, it doesn't matter so much.
Number 65, that's the rider that they're protecting. That is Mikel Landa.
If they thought he was weak and they underestimated him, they would be attacking him. Now they're just riding on the front, which makes it look much more like they're just starting to think about their own positions, protect their own spot on GC.
It's got to be too early for that, doesn't it?
But then, see, and it's still very early in this tour, even though we're 2 weeks in, we're approaching the second rest day. The big Alpine stages is where this tour will be decided. 2 minutes is a healthy lead for Alaphilippe, but in the scheme of things, it's only about 750 metres on a climb.
This is stage 15. Stages 18, 19 and 20 are brutal in the Alps. Lots of climbing above 2,000 metres, and we go as high as 2,700 metres above sea level. Bardet, I'm delighted to see number 31 in the break today. No matter what happens in terms of his stage result, this is the character of a real champion.
Well, just look at how many groups we've got on the road. All right, the one at the back, Sagan and Wellens, that is the Gruppetto. The Maillot Jaune group at 3:36. They are now 1 minute and 17 behind Landa and Quintana.
Here's the climb. You haven't ridden it before, Robbie. It's a new destination in the tour.
Out of Foix, easy gradient to begin with. Then it goes into the red zone. That is between 6 and 8%. And then look at that kick early on. Greater than 9%, little ease off again, then another kick. It's an irregular climb, hard to get a rhythm on, and the reports are that the road surface is rough and bumpy. It doesn't flow. You start to get in trouble on this. It's not just the gradient, but the road surface holds you back as well. Eases off at the top, so if anyone comes into the finish in a small group, they're going to have to sprint it out in that last few hundred metres. But it's the first 1/3 of the climb that should do all the damage.
And this is Tony Galopin, Dan Martin, Leonard Kamno, Michael Woods. They've returned to the Bardet Quintana group. Kreuziger is there with the green colours from Dimension Data.
And this is good for the two in front. Their gap has climbed out to almost a minute 10 now. As this group comes together and they all look at each other, Geschke and Yates push on like a two-man time trial, still building their advantage over their closest pursuers. We're getting two races for one prize today. The race for the stage win amongst the break, and then behind the attacking group of Landa versus the group Maillot Jaune, where the Maillot Jaune himself is just sitting in the wheels, letting Jumbo-Visma do the work.
We're running out of cameras to keep up with everything. This is at the back of the yellow jersey group. The white colours you can see, that's Fabio Aru. Just in front of him, the French champion, Warren Barguil. This is the group of Mikel Landa at 2:19. Mikel Landa, number 65, will not touch the wind until they hit the bottom of the climb. Marc Soler at the front, Andre Amador in the middle. Those two will empty themselves.
This has been absolutely ideal for Movistar. They set it up yesterday and looked to be right on track to execute the plan. It didn't go like they wanted, or Landa was solid. Quintana was dropped. But today, riders in the break, one attack out of the group of favourites, and just look how efficient they've been, waiting at the right time, being able to go with him over the top of the climb and then pin the ears back down the valley road, and the gap is growing all the time, and it's now out to a minute 16.
This is a really good move by Mikel Landa. This is not a day where he can take the yellow jersey, but he can move himself back towards the top five. And now Group Armour FDJ, this is Rudy Millar who's gone to the front. They're a little bit concerned about Mikel Landa, and rightly so. Jack Haig returns. Here's the yellow jersey. No teammates. Is Dries Devenins perhaps returning with this group? Totally isolated now out in front.
Well, weather-wise, it stopped raining at the finish line. It's also stopped raining down here at the foot of the climb, although there is a bit of laying water where the riders are, still dry, so it should not have an impact on the race, making the roads dangerous at all. If anything, it's just going to add to the drama on the climb.
Future's so bright, I need to wear shades.
Fresh glasses, or get them cleaned at least, for Julien Alaphilippe.
Even a little thank you.
Thank you, I'm all good. He absolutely loves it.
He's winning and he's polite. Almost into the streets of Foix. In fact, they are on the outskirts of Foix, and they're out to a minute and 30 seconds ahead of the chasing group. This is the finish line.
You can see them just brushing the water with the squeegee off the finish line and off all the advertising. It has rained heavily up at the finish line, and you see up into the clouds, the misty conditions up top. Down here, clear, dry, perfect conditions for the race to the foot of the climb. 15 kilometres to go for the chasing group of the Maillot Jaune.
There is just 1/10 of the normal infrastructure at the finish. Not enough room, but the crowds in Foix, they're enormous.
Well, they're into the streets where the stage is so often finished here in Foix. Last time it was Warren Barguil winning the stage over Contador in a sprint finish. Now it's through the old finish and up to Prat d'Albi.
The old finish line is where it just starts to get really hard. Soigniers on the side of the road.
Last drinks.
Collected by Yates and Geschke. It's the Simon combination out in front. Both of them having a chat onto the team car as well. You can see the grab into the jersey.
Maybe just a last update. What's the gap? Let them know. Climb. This last climb, as we've got to take a look at the castle that hovers above Le Chateau Comte de Foix. Pardon me.
This is the chateau just on the outskirts of Foix. Commands the city of Foix. It's been renowned as a Cathar bastion for many years since its establishment in the 10th century. It's in a strategic position for defensive purposes historically. The race is now in a strategically significant position, and it is the defence all on his own of the yellow jersey for Julien Alaphilippe.
That final climb, 11.8 kilometres, 6.9%.
This is another look at that chateau, often besieged by Simon de Montfort from 1211 to 1212. It staunchly resisted, and only once was it overtaken, and that was in 1486. And that was as a result of a war between two branches of the Counts of Foix.
The toughest sections of this climb come between kilometre 3 and 4 and 5 and 6. They are the steepest ramps above 11% gradient. After that, it's 5 kilometres at around 7%.
5 riders still in there from Ineos by the looks of it. Let's not forget the white jersey of Egan Bernal, the leader of the best young rider classification. David Gaudu, no, it's still Rudy Millar from Groupama FDJ. This is Mühlberger now at the front for Bora Hansgrohe, followed by De Plus in the yellow colours for Jumbo-Visma. Omar Frele is the rider who is in 3rd position for Astana. This is Ciccone, a day in the breakaway. He's still suffering the ill effects from a fall 4 days ago.
You saw him just putting his hand on his back, maybe bothering him slightly, but it's been a good ride by Ciccone up there trying to help Richie Porte. A bad day yesterday for Porte on the slopes of the Tourmalet. Amador, his job is done, and a fantastic job it has been by the Costa Rican, the domestique of Team Movistar. Ridden hard for Mikel Landa, along with Marc Soler, who is still going in front of the Spaniard.
He has been the most important teammate for Movistar. Getting into that break on the day where when Daryl Impey won, the last one to get there, to protect their position in the team's classification. A lot of work yesterday, even more work today.
He's been fantastic, and he's guiding Landa to a time gain, but the gap is coming down. It's now under 1 minute between the group of Landa and the yellow jersey group of Julian Alaphilippe. 59 seconds less, now 56.
We look back at the famous chateau that overlooks the city of Foix. Dates back to the 10th century. Well done, number 67, Marc Soler. Now, for Mikel Landa, he has a 10-kilometre individual time trial.
And that's all it is. He doesn't have to look at anybody or anything. Just get the most out of himself on the way up the climb. Plenty of traffic on the way up. Team cars trying to get to their riders in that front group who are on the chase behind Yates and Geschke. And Mikel Landa, I think soon will be starting to pick some of those riders up.
6th on the stage yesterday. He's got cars to chase in front of him, as Amador has now been called by the George Bennett-led peloton. Kruijswijk in 2nd position. Might have been a shake of the head to a swan, yeah.
Yes. No thanks, no more drinks needed, I'm fine. Looking relaxed, George Bennett setting the pace.
Geraint Thomas behind Kruijswijk, then Castroviejo.
Alaphilippe sitting a lot further back in the group at the moment.
There's the yellow jersey.
Number 21 on the left-hand side.
He's stalking Thibaut Pinot. He's on the wheel of yesterday's stage winner. That's a pretty smart move. Landa quickly across to Nairo Quintana. I wonder what Quintana will do to ride in support of Mikel Landa. Quintana is better placed overall, but Landa clearly, based on yesterday, has better legs, and there's still a long way to go in this race.
It seems to be the case, and can Quintana do any more than he is currently doing? You would think once he got on the climb, he would have gone in search of the riders in front. Landa, straight past the Colombian. Not a look, not a word, he just keeps going.
I get the impression that the relationship between those two is a little frosty.
Landa back out of the saddle. Look over the shoulder. Have I dropped Quintana? No, he's coming with me. Can I get anything out of him? So Landa pushing on, passing the group. This is Tony Galopin on the front.
Romain Bardet. Raikkonen back in 2nd position in the red colours. He's a teammate of Thibaut Pinot at Groupama FDJ. The gap is at 1:33 to the two Simons. It's extending for Yates and Geschke.
They are going away, the two riders in front. They've been going away since the top of the last climb. They opened up the gap on the downhill. They've even increased it more down the Valley Road, working together, and still full commitment from both riders. Geschke 1:14 in the orange, the German. Simon Yates, the Brit, number 1:08 from Mitchelton Scott. A minute and a half with 8.5 kilometres to go. Considering it's not the favourites group of the yellow jersey, huge chance of pulling this one off.
And now they're trying to clear these vehicles out because the gap between this group and the yellow jersey is just over a minute and almost 10 seconds. Yates attacks. He's won in Bagnères de Bigorre. He wants to win on a mountaintop finish. And that has put to rest the hopes of Szymon Geschke. A blistering assault by Simon Yates.
That attack has not only dropped Geschke, it's nearly knocked him off his bike.
And no reaction from the German. He knows his limitations. And so quickly, Yates has settled back into his rhythm. Yates, 382 to the chasers. That's Geschke that's chasing at 382 metres behind. Then it's the Mikel Landa-led group. Then the group of the Maillot Jaune.
So Yates has got to be about 700 metres or so ahead of the group led by Mikel Landa, and he's exploded this group now.
It's all over for Romain Bardet for the stage win, but again, you cannot speak highly enough of his courage. The red colours of Leonard Kamna for Sunweb.
Yeah, it's been good to see Bardet have a go after yesterday's horror showing on the Tourmalet, but the writing was on the wall, and when a man like Landa comes out and on the attack, it was only a matter of time before they dropped like flies, and the man holding on gamely is the German Kamna, but a little gap now between him and the wheel of Mikel Landa.
Just a little one. It's the French again. It's Groupama FDJ. It's the 22-year-old. It's Gaudu who goes.
It's a replay of yesterday on the Tourmalet. David Gaudu, Thibaut Pinot, followed by the men from Jumbo-Visma, and now Julian Alaphilippe has moved himself further forward in the group. He's behind the two riders of Ineos.
Impressive. All the cars taken off to the side of the road. The yellow jersey still there. He's in the middle of the group.
It's a 1 minute gap to Mikel Landa and plenty of riders in between that. Cars are out of there, out of the way, and they'll pick them off now one by one, but it's still a minute 10 to Mikel Landa.
Bennett swings off. Job well done, George Bennett.
Jack Haig is still here in this group, just about to be distanced.
The French national champion, that is Barguil, he's now at the back of the group. As Landa, he's seen the return of Leonard Kamna.
This is on that little easier section. They've had the first really steep part of a kilometre at 10.5%. It then eased off a little bit, a tiny little piece of flat plateau, and then it kicks up again. Yates is now on it, 11%.
Okay, gets off this and then it settles down ever so slightly, but not a lot.
Settles down into an average of 7% for the next 4 kilometres.
Not a lot, okay.
Not very settled.
Woods has been caught in the pink colours. He's still got his teammate in this group, Rigoberto Urán. Richie Porter's still here. The white jersey, number 2, Egan Bernal, down towards the back of the group. Well, Poles adjusts the jersey. He sits behind the defending champion, Geraint Thomas. There's Egan Bernal just in front of Port. This is the French champion, Wawa, Warren Barguil. Lutsenko now being caught.
Still just over a minute for Mikel Landa. He is at 1:17 off the leader, Simon Yates. The yellow jersey group at 2:20. Almost even gaps between the three.
Woods a day in the breakaway. We'll see him in another break, I'm sure, by the time this race reaches Paris. Good effort by number 98. Richie Port looking better than yesterday. Number 2, Egan Bernal, perhaps not looking quite as good as he was 24 hours ago.
He's on the wheel of Rigoberto.
And now we're seeing, finally, one of the youngest riders in the race, Leonard Kamna, being dropped by Landa.
The gap opened centimetre by centimetre, then to a bike length. He got that easier section and came back, but then to hit these 11% slopes, Landa in the drops, out of the saddle, control. Great pace from the Spaniard. He's still holding a 1 minute gap over the chasing yellow jersey group, but importantly for Yates, he's not closing the gap on him.
After the stage yesterday, David Gaudu said, I just wanted to hurt the others.
He is at the moment. Look at Warren Barguil, French champion. He is now going out the back.
Suffering and fighting. This is Dan Martin from the breakaway, now being caught. So too is Tony Galopin.
Mikel Landa, he started the day 11th overall at 6 minutes 14, virtually on the road. He's riding himself into 8th. Rigoberto Uran's in trouble. He's been dropped from the group.
And that could be enough for Landa to move up to 7th, which is where Rigoberto Uran started.
We've heard the riders say it so much. There's going to be people who suddenly get into trouble. We never know when it's going to come. But if you're sure of anything in this brutal edition of the Tour de France, everyone is going to have a bad day.
And Mikel Landa, he has been free to the shackles. He now catches Simon Geschke. He's got one to come, and it's another Simon. It's the Yates variety.
And now he's back out to 110 lead over the chasing group with the yellow jersey.
He won't be sitting on this wheel for too long. A brief look at it, up the inside. Landa presses on. Geschke takes a look, and he suffers to the top.
Simon Yates has another 100 metres at this gradient of around 11%. Then it dropped back to 8% for another kilometre, able to maybe find a little more rhythm. There is the climbing left to come, 407 metres to the top of this climb, elevation difference.
And the road surface, it's certainly not a quick road surface. That's not hot mix. This is Thibaut Pinot, yesterday's stage winner, and the reaction comes from Bernal, the best young rider in the race.
Well, Thibaut Pinot, he's riding not only on fantastic form, but on so much confidence drawn from yesterday's stage win on top of the Tourmalet. Gaudu, great job, he's done.
At a standstill. And now Reichenbach, who's been waiting, now he opens up the throttle because his team leader is on his wheel.
Alaphilippe, he has reacted. He's on the wheel of Bookman. He looks behind. No riders from Ineos. No Thomas.
And no Steven Kruijswijk. Where is Kruijswijk?
Sorry, there is a rider from Ineos, of course. It's Egan Bernal.
There's Kruijswijk.
Kruijswijk, Thomas, Fuglsang,
Port.
Valverde, Pools, Port.
So Egan Bernal, he is emerging. He looked in difficulty earlier, but he wasn't. He's riding well. He follows the move. There is the yellow jersey. Surely now, as we head towards the second rest day, Julian Alaphilippe is the Tour favourite. Look who else is there. Mr. Quiet. Keep it a secret. Emmanuel Buchmann. Valverde. This is Quintana.
If he had it in his legs, he would have gone with him in the first place. Valverde doing what he can. This is Kreuziger, Martin. So riders who are in the original break being mopped up one by one. This is the group of GC favourites that are left standing at this point in the race on the chase behind Landa, who still holds 50 seconds on them.
And it's a significant gap. Well, Pauls, followed by Thomas. It is then Kruijswijk. Port is there. So too is Fuglsang. Reichenbach doing an outstanding job in red.
Pinot talking to Reichenbach. Wind it up. Keep going. Give me a little bit more. Come on. We've got them gapped. Keep it going.
Improving his position in the overall standings, Thibaut Pinot started the day in 6th place at 3:12.
Reichenbach responds. He gives it everything that he's got left, the Swiss champion, following instructions when he was in the break with Quintana. Now is the moment. Shows his worth to the leader, Pinot.
And the defence for number 1, last year's winner, is under real pressure. Thibaut Pinot goes again. Egan Bernal is with him.
Buchmann responds. There's a gap. There's a length. Alaphilippe up the inside, out the way. He gives him a little nudge and gets himself back into the wheel. Alaphilippe is covering the big contenders of this tour, and he's doing it easily.
And he hasn't had any teammates for the last 30 kilometres. Who needs teammates when you're Julian Alaphilippe? Egan Bernal and Thibaut Pinot at the start of the day, they were separated by 12 seconds. Bernal just in front of the Frenchman. He'd love crosswind. That's Thibaut Pinot we speak of.
It's not being
One
handed
small
back
mistake.
to him. He'll have to go out and get it. And the way he's riding, he can take it in the mountains.
He presses on, the yellow jersey, the first signs, the yellow jersey. He has cracked, but will he fall apart? He now has to find a rhythm and limit the damage, and that has inspired Thibaut Pinot.
Commentators curse. He's doing it easily. Next minute he pops. So the looks on the faces, you get no read. He went across that little gap with the panache we're used to. Next minute he blows up.
Could be the longest 5 kilometres in his career. Race radio, but there's no one to call for help.
He doesn't need to let them know. They'll be following on the broadcast back in the team car. Julian Alaphilippe now distanced by Bernal and Pinot. Is this the signal now for Egan Bernal to push on? Alaphilippe is dropped. Bernal has got to keep going forward. He can cooperate with Thibaut Pinot.
The answer, it has to be yes.
He says no.
But he is the best placed overall from that group. He doesn't do a steady rhythm. He tries to sprint back into contention, but that moves him into the red zone.
He went into the red a little too deep. He had to just ease off, recover, and he will keep coming all the way to the top. And he knows he's got the buffer to play with to hold the yellow jersey, but he'd love to get himself back onto the wheels of the favourites here, and he still has a big gap over the next chasing group.
Kemna is now being caught by Pinot, Bernal and Bookman. 107 is the advantage for Simon Yates ahead of Mikel Landa. It has stabilised.
It has not changed almost since the bottom of the climb. He had a minute and a half, lost some of it very, very quickly initially on the very early slopes. Since then, he has settled into the rhythm. I don't see Landa getting across to Simon Yates.
But the yellow jersey is fighting back. So too is the defending champion. You look in the distance to the black and red colours of Ineos with Pauls and Thomas.
He's closer to the group behind than he is to the one in front. Julian Alaphilippe looks over his shoulder. Pinot out of the saddle again. Looks to see if anyone can respond. It's Bookman. Then it's Bernal. Alaphilippe, he'll fight for this jersey all the way to the top.
92 metres is the gap between Julian Alaphilippe and Thibaut Pinot. The suffering of the yellow jersey, the spirit of the yellow jersey, the courage of Pinot. Bookman has been broken.
One by one, they are dropping off the edge. Thibaut Pinot doing the damage. Another acceleration. Big gear.
Chain-ring. And now we see Bernal fight to hold on. Fighting desperately, stays in the wheel of Thibaut Pinot.
No.
The Frenchman flicks the elbow.
He's still not got the go-ahead, Egan Bernal, and you can imagine he's also at his absolute limit on the wheel of the Frenchman. Now the group with Thomas and Kruijswijk, they are coming up to the back wheel of Julian Alaphilippe, but it looks like the big winners of the day will be Simon Yates off the front for the stage. But the battle behind...
The gap has opened ever so slightly. Finally, Thibaut Pinot has found the crack in Egan Bernal. He's free to fly, but the Colombian, he's not done with. One knee on the canvas. It got to 8 the count, and he is back in the fight.
Well, Egan Bernal, a shake of the head when asked to come through. Not allowed? I don't think so. Just couldn't do any better. Pinot has him on the ropes.
He throws another punch. This one gets him on the quadriceps. 4 kilometres to climb, 4 kilometres of opportunity for Thibaut Pinot.
Egan Bernal, steady state riding, not reacting, but looking behind. That is telling. Pinot's going away from in front and he looks over his shoulder, but he needs to keep that even tempo and hope that Pinot out-attacks himself.
Well, so far, Thibaut Pinot hasn't shown any signs of buckling. He has been the most aggressive in the mountains.
And this is how he always rides in the hill, with just jabs, kicks, winding it up, bigger gear, smaller gear, seated, standing, change of rhythm all the time. But whatever he's doing, he's going fast.
It is working. Richie Porte having a fantastic day. He's at the back of this group with the red helmet. In front of him is Alejandro Valverde, the world champion. Then it is Steven Kruijswijk starting the day in 3rd place overall. Wout Poels and Geraint Thomas are there from Ineos, and the yellow jersey is trying to defend because he's been challenged by his compatriot, Thibaut Pinot.
Pinot is almost going to have Landa in his sights. 12 seconds between the two. Bernal, 4 or 5 seconds behind Pinot. And at the moment, Pinot has 42 seconds on the group of the Maillot Jaune.
Well, for a moment, we're declaring Alaphilippe as now definitely a favourite to win. Now we're looking at this as Alaphilippe very vulnerable. Thibaut Pinot, perhaps he will end the drought for the French on a rainy day in the Pyrenees. Lander at 108. Yates is still on target, but 3 kilometres, that's a long way to climb with the class of Thibaut Pinot huffing and puffing and trying to blow Yates's house down.
I think we're still getting 3 races for the price of one today. Yates on his way to victory on the stage. I can't see him being caught with the pedigree that he's got. Already a winner of a Grand Tour. Stages in Grand Tours. Surely they won't catch him. But Pinot versus the other favourites, the yellow jersey trying to rescue it. It's all happening.
Yates at 107. The yellow jersey, Julian Alaphilippe started the day with a 3-minute and 12-second buffer on Thibaut Pinot. He's still holding on to almost a 2-minute advantage in that race for yellow. So quickly through the corner on the steep gradients in the rain, Mikel Landa. It's been consistent, 108, and he's about to hear the cheers, not from in front, but from behind. It's a Mexican wave of support for a Frenchman.
And you can gauge it coming through that corner. Thibaut Pinot so much faster than Landa, who came through first, and then Bernal, who came through next. The Frenchman is smashing them.
Kruijswijk and Thomas talking. What do we do now? Port behind them. Kruijswijk knows what he wants to do, and that is attack. He's got a gap. Looks to check on Geraint Thomas. Settles into the rhythm.
Kruijswijk just had to, with Pinot up the road as far as he is, and that Alaphilippe's gone in the red zone and come back to them. He had to have a go. Pouls it is that responds. He's been rested over the first 2 weeks of the Tour de France, constantly dropped. Now he's doing his work for Geraint Thomas. Thibaut Pinot, his team has risen to the occasion of this Tour de France, and virtually at the moment he's ridden his way up to 4th overall, and he's only a matter of 11 seconds off the 2nd place of Geraint Thomas.
And Emmanuel Buchmann is fighting his way back to Egan Bernal. And so impressive, another young German, Lennart Kämna, sticking with him. 22-year-old, 26, 22. The next generation has very much arrived. They have arrived in full force with a little over 2 kilometres to climb at the front of the race. That is for Simon Yates, that 2-kilometre marker. Thibaut Pinot's not chasing third. He did that 5 years ago. He's chasing first. This is Yates. He's chasing first, but had one already. He wants to make it 2.
A steep pinch here for the Englishman, but still holding good rhythm. Already a winner in Bagneres de Bigorre. His brother yesterday dropped on the Tourmalet. His GC hopes over. The team focused and refocused very quickly. Simon Yates back in the break. Almost got the stage win within his grasp.
Thibaut Pinot moves up to virtual 3rd place overall. He has almost caught Mikel Landa, and for the first time, he takes a look over the shoulder to see what's happening behind him. But the race is out in front.
We've seen others look over their shoulder, and it takes the morale away. The look for Pinot would have given him so much morale, because all he sees is the wide open spaces.
Now Landa looks across the shoulder. As Landa looks, he's starting to grimace. This is Wout Poels. Kruijswijk just behind him. Then it is Geraint Thomas. So too is Richie Porte, having a much better day than yesterday.
Well, the gradients ease off towards the top of the climb. In fact, the last kilometre eases right off down through 5% and almost flat for the last 100 metres or so. 2 kilometres to go for the yellow jersey group. It's an attack by Thomas.
Kruijswijk can respond. The yellow jersey can't. He doesn't have any more answers. He's got 2 kilometres and 2 minutes. That's his advantage over Geraint Thomas. It's 2:02. Can he defend that in the space of 2 kilometres?
Look how quickly that has opened up. But can Thomas sustain the attack to the top? He got in trouble yesterday with a kilometre. There's no one behind him that can come through. Julian Alaphilippe, he battles on. And the biggest danger is looming from Thibaut Pinot, looking forward to the mountain stages still to come in this Tour de France. But he looks he's going to give some time back.
Is Yates. He can see the kites, and this is where he'll start to build a little bit more momentum. It eases off ever so slightly. His advantage is 1 minute on Thibaut Pinot. Here comes the yellow jersey. Porte was about to go across the line.
It was 40 seconds from Pinot to Thomas.
He will hold onto the yellow jersey, but his advantage has taken a significant haircut, and we've seen vulnerability for the first time at the Maillot Jaune. Julien Alaphilippe fights bravely. He saves yellow, but how much is left in the tank?
Loses just over 1:20 to Thibaut Pinot.
3:12 was the gap at the start of the day.
He loses 40 to 45 seconds to Geraint Thomas.
And Steven Kruijswijk.
And Bernal further ahead of that.
Even more so. That was Guillaume Martin going across the finish line at 2:10. Kruijswijk can win this race. Yes. Bernal can win this race.
Affirmative.
Thomas?
Uh-huh.
It's so good. What a tour. Yates has done it again, though. 3 stage wins for Mitchelton Scott now.
The man who lost the most today was Rigoberto Urán, but prophetically this morning he said anybody in the first, was it 6 or 8?
6.
Anyone
He
in the
went
first
down
6 to him.
No, he didn't include himself. He went down to Thibaut Pinot in 6.
He said anyone in the first 6 can win this tour.
Yeah.
He was the one who said on a mountainside, that lead of a couple of minutes is no more than 700 metres.
Emmanuel Bookman. He's the only one in that group, I think, no one.
Yeah, I think no, but he could still podium.
Oh, he can definitely podium. It's the stage classification once again. Simon Yates winning ahead of Thibaut Pinot, then Mikel Landa. It was Bookman and Bernal at 51 seconds. Kampner, so good in 6 from the day-long breakaway. It was then Thomas. We had Kruijswijk and Valverde. They were all together. Another 8 seconds back was Richie Porte. And now here comes Dylan van Baarle. Riding back down the hill, that is David Gaudu. So too Romain Bardet riding back down the hill. Not enough room up here for the team buses. They have to cautiously head back down the hill to their team cars and then embrace the rest day.
Well, Matt, talking of that, that is something you said, go back down cautiously, extremely cautiously. We've seen it in the past in Tour de France, mountaintop finishes. David Moncoutier has been a victim of that, falling on the way down a descent and ending his tour going into a rest day.
And last year, Chris Froome on the way off a mountain had an
he was tackled
with a policeman.
He was rugged.
And there is the general classification. Thibaut Pinot is at 1 minute and 50 seconds behind.
And like Urán said, anyone in the top 6 can win this tour. 2:14 separating 6 riders. 12 seconds between Thomas and Kruijswijk, another 3 seconds back to Pinot, another 12 seconds back to Bernal, another 12 seconds back to Bookman.